Please rise. Councilmember Pilarski, if you can lead the room in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans. And for our invocation, we have Reverend Rick Myson.
Father, as this past weeks, we've been celebrating our 250th anniversary of this nation. And Father God, we thank you for this nation. It's not without its faults or problems. But Lord, you're there with us as we trust in you, Father, to bring unity to this country, to our states, counties, and Father, principalities, Father, all around. Father, tonight we look to you to bless these new officers coming on the police force. Father, for each and every officer to be sworn in today, Father God, we ask, Lord, your blessing upon them and upon their families. And Lord, we thank you, Father, that they heard the call, and Father, they took the call. And Lord, they are here to protect us, the residents of Cheektowaga. We ask, Father God, your blessing upon our firemen and all first responders. And Father, we think of those in our service, Father, that are in harm's way right now. We ask your protection upon them. We ask, Father God, at this meeting today, that, Lord, everything be done decently, in order, according to your will. Father, there might be differences of opinion, but Father, everybody has a voice. And Father, that's what makes this country great. We ask your blessing, for we ask it in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. You may be seated.
Hey, for attendees, Councilmember Barb Bukowski,
Here.
Councilmember Monica Elderkin,
Here.
Councilmember Tiffany Lewis,
Present.
Councilmember Stephen Nowicki,
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski,
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Nowak.
Present. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the July 14th meeting of the Town of Cheektowaga Board. We've got a fairly packed agenda this evening, so we're going to get right into it, beginning with a proclamation to Lynn Rogalski. She's the first woman to work in the Cheektowaga Highway Department as a laborer and spending nearly 3 decades in that department, doing a job that was and it is in a lot of respects still seen as a traditionally male role. In a lot of professions these days, there are women breaking into professions that are male dominated. I'm thinking of things like the volunteer fire service or engineers. the police department in certain respect these days. There's many other professions that the way things were in the 60s or 70s or the 80s and the 90s, they're different than they are today. It is a different environment. It is better for the workforce. Things are progressing, things are improving. So if I can call Lynn and her sisters and brothers from the TCEA up to the podium and to have the town board join me up front. So as I mentioned, Lynn spent nearly 3 decades working in the town of Cheektowaga Highway Department, in a profession that was, or in a department that was male-dominated, still is to this day. You're one of the many trailblazers that have come in this department. There's folks in this audience that were first, whether it was in their fire departments, whether it was first in their particular jobs. But this just as much as this is for you, it is a show to everybody else that as the labor force is changing, as the world is changing, the jobs that are available out there are for everybody to apply to. And we should honor and appreciate somebody that set an example that for its time was relatively unusual. So I'm going to read the proclamation off, and it says, and if I butcher your name, correct me. Like it says to Lynn Rogalski. I tried to straighten this out, but got it. Thank you. It says, whereas the town supervisor of Cheektowaga, in conjunction with the Cheektowaga Town Board, pays tribute to Lynn Rogalski in celebration of her retirement after 35 years of service with the town of Cheektowaga. Whereas Lynn was hired as a full-time laborer in the highway department in May of 1991 and faithfully served the town of Cheektowaga until her retirement on July 2nd of this year, providing leadership and steadfast advocacy on behalf of town employees. And whereas Lynn served as a member of the TCA Executive Board from 2011 to 2016, as Chief Steward from 16 to 20, and a brief time as the TCA President, reflecting her longstanding dedication to representing and supporting her fellow colleagues. And whereas throughout her career, Lynn has demonstrated professionalism, integrity, and commitment to public service. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board salutes Lynn Rogalski in celebration of her retirement after 35 years of service and wishes her a healthy, joy-filled retirement. Thank you for your service. Thanks for coming. All right, that'll move us on to our next order of business, which is Resolution 2026-448. And with that, I will hand it over to the acting clerk.
Resolution 2026-448, appointment of police officers for the police department. Sponsored by Supervisor Novak, Councilmember Vernon Thompson. Whereas 7 vacancies exist on the position of police officer in the town of Cheektowaga, resolved that the following individuals be and hereby appointed to the position of police officer. Alan McClenathan, Matthew Angelo, Joshua Shields, Keith Stewart, Michael Contrera, Jordan Williams, and Sindel Thomas. Resolved that said appointment shall become effective July 22nd.
On the question, I'd like to offer an amendment to this resolution in regards to Mr. Contrera and Mr. Williams, or in Williams. And it would read for both of those lines that contingent upon approval from Erie County Civil Service would be added next to those two names.
Second that.
Proper motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. On the resolution, I'll hand it back to the clerk. So all in favor of the resolution?
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. And with that, I'd like to call forward the Chief of Police.
Good evening, Supervisor, council members. I'd like to first introduce you to our first of 7 officers. First, we have Alan McClenathan. He's a town resident, holds an associate's degree in criminal justice from ECC. He's currently working as a paramedic supervisor for Erie County. Welcome to the family. Next, I have Matthew Angelo. He's also a town resident. He has credits from ECC, physical education, currently working at Woody's 5-Star Detailing. Welcome to the family. Next up, I have Joshua Shields. He is a Lancaster resident. Has earned credits from Kaiser University in Business Administration Management. He currently works for DRGK Properties as a laborer. Welcome. Next up, I have Keith Stewart, also a Lancaster resident. Holds a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from the University of Buffalo and is current employee at Wegmans. Welcome. Next up, I have Michael Contrera, Lakeview resident, holds an associate's degree in liberal arts from ECC, currently working as a armored truck driver for Loomis Armored Truck. Welcome. Next up, I have Jordan Williams, Orchard Park resident, bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies from Liberty University, currently works as a life insurance sales agent. Little sidebar, he also spent time as a professional football player. Welcome, Jordan. And last but not least, Sindel Thomas, East Amherst resident, bachelor's degree in film studies and production from Hofstra University. Currently works with the Office of People with Development Disabilities as a support assistant. Welcome, Sindel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I stay over here so you're not left alone?
Thank you. Hot off the press.
Our next order of business, we'll get started in just a moment, but we have an auditor's presentation from Drescher and Malecki. So Nick, if you'd like to approach the podium and introduce yourself.
All right. Thanks for having me. My name is Nick Petronic. I'm with Drescher and Malecki. We're the external auditors for the town of Cheektowaga. I'm here to briefly present on the town's external audit for the fiscal year ended 2025.
Before Nick gets started, just to let you guys know, the intent is we're looking at maybe a 10, 15-minute presentation. There's an opportunity to ask questions afterwards. If in the event Nick can't answer your question here, we'll work on getting an answer to that question offline. So floor is yours.
All right, thank you. And as I mentioned before, we're here to present on some of the results of the audit. As part of that audit, we have a couple of deliverables that we give to the town. That includes the town's financial statements. It includes a single audit that pertains to your federal awards, an auditor's communication letter, a management letter, and then a departmental report that covers some of the other areas that we look at in the town justice, the town clerk and tax receivers, the recreation department and senior center. And then last but not least, we help file the annual financial report that goes to the state comptroller's office. I'm not sure who's in charge of the slides, but we can, I don't know who's directing. Oh, okay. And then as I mentioned before, so the financial statements, we do plan on moving forward with a clean, unmodified opinion. So that's the best you can do from an audit standpoint. And that's consistent with prior years. Same thing on the single audit side pertaining to your federal awards. No non-compliance noted, no what we would call question costs pertaining to those federal awards. So another clean bill of health there as well. And like as I mentioned before, we will issue a management letter to the town. We have not done so yet, but it kind of includes some of our recommendations or observations moving forward. And then I guess we can go to the next slide. So we'll start going into some of the funds real quick. We like to present a 5-year trend or look back for a couple of your major funds, and then just show where your levels of fund balance currently stand at December 31st, 2025. Keep in mind, our job as your auditors is to review past financial activity. Okay, so we're not projecting anything. We're reviewing 2025 numbers that have already happened, so that you can rely on those numbers and you can make decisions based on those numbers and that they're fairly stated. So moving into the garbage fund, as you can see in a 5-year trend here, fairly consistent over the last 5 years. In 2025, expenditures outpaced revenues slightly. So your change in fund balance was a decrease of about $280,000. Your main drivers of revenue in this fund are your real property taxes. And then the big chunk of your expenditures are towards your salaries and employee benefits in this fund as well. On the next slide, so this kind of is a snapshot of where your fund balance levels are at. At December 31st, 2025, you have about $2.1 million in your garbage fund. That blue portion there that makes up the majority of the fund balance, that's technically available and not designated for any specific purpose within the garbage fund. That small gray portion there represents amounts that were appropriated in the 2026 budget, which you'll see with some of the other funds as well. So here's the sewer fund. Again, expenditures outpaced revenues this year in the sewer fund by about $500,000. In the sewer fund, the real property taxes are your main driver of revenue here as well. It accounts for about $13 million of almost $14 million are recognized in revenue. And then on the expenditure side of things, you have most of your money going towards salaries and employee benefits. And then there's some transfers out to other funds to help cover debt service payments and insurance payments as well. So then at December 31st, 2025, in the sewer fund, you have about $6.3 million. In that gray portion there of that $5.5 million, that's what's assigned. So that's kind of earmarked for money that's earmarked in the 2026 budget. You also have $2 million there that's kind of earmarked for pollution remediation costs, future costs that the town might have to incur. And then there's also about $500,000 that's been encumbered for future periods. And then of that $6.3 million in total fund balance, you have about $724,000 that's technically available, or about 11.5% of your total fund balance. Moving on to the highway fund, revenues outpaced expenditures here by about $1.3 million in 2025, so it's a nice change from the prior year. Sales tax is the main driver of revenue in this fund that accounts for about $12.7 million, and that outpaced what was budgeted in 2025. However, with the fluctuations that we see in sales tax, we're not always sure that can be counted on in the future. This fund also recognized FEMA aid that came in from the 2022 winter storms. Again, another one-time revenue source that can't necessarily be counted on in future budgets. And then on the expense side of things, a lot of your money going towards transportation costs and improvements, as well as employee benefits as well. And then large transfers out of this fund to kind of help debt service costs as well. So at December 31st, 2025, the highway fund has about $8.4 million in total fund balance. 4.6 of this amount is assigned, and then of that 4.6, just over $3 million has been appropriated in the 2026 budget. And that leaves over about $3.6 million, which represents that blue portion there. That's technically available in the highway fund and represents about 43% of total fund balance at year end. On the next slide, Town Outside Village Fund. Revenues outpaced expenditures here as well, a nice change from the last couple of years. So there's a slight increase in fund balance of about $88,000. The town was able to recognize a nice increase in permit and licensing fees here in this fund. And then that outpaced some of your expenditures on the public safety side, as well as those routine transfers that are made to the general fund to help cover health insurance costs. So at December 31st, 2025, there's about $1.4 million here in total fund balance. $537,000 of that has been appropriated in the 2026 budget. And then in that blue portion, you see $872,000 is technically available at December 31st. So those are what we would consider part of your major funds. However, the general fund is the one that draws the most attention. This has the most, contains the most operating activity throughout the town. And consistent with prior years, there's a small decrease in fund balance this year. In the general fund, your expenditures outpaced your revenues by about $263,000. But when you compare that to what was budgeted, there's an appropriation of about $7.2 million of fund balance. So the budget basically is saying we expect we expect expenditures to outpace revenues by $7.2 million. In reality, it came to about $200,000 that they were outpaced by. So good performance by the general fund this year. Real property taxes, again, are your main drivers of revenue there. State aid was about $2.3 million. Federal aid, which is mostly your American Rescue Plan money, was about 1.7 in the general fund. And then you're able to recognize some savings within public safety and employee benefits as well, even as those costs continue to rise across the board and into future years. So total fund balance in the general fund at December 31st is about $29.4 million. In that gray portion there, that's $2.2 million. That represents prepaid money that's already kind of gone out the door for prepaid health insurance, things of that nature. The yellow portion, the $9.1 million, that's money that's set aside in a reserve for insurance purposes. That's legally restricted, so that can't really be moved unless it's been decided upon by the board here. The gray portion, $7.6 million. A lot of that has been appropriated in the 2026 budget, again, as I mentioned before. And then the $10.3 million, that blue portion, that's technically your unassigned fund balance. That's what's available in the general fund once you really break it down. And that represents about 16% of your total annual expenditures for 2025. And when you compare that to 2024, that percentage was at about 14.4%. So pretty consistent across the board in that regard. And that's pretty much it from a number standpoint. I want to thank Brian Kraus and his staff for another smooth, efficient audit, as well as all the other department heads that we worked with. We were able to come in, get the job done, get everything issued by the deadline of June 30th. And we just want to thank everyone, and I'm open to questions now, or I'm available at any time if anyone has questions throughout the year.
Comment on this, I want to thank you for adding the Partown Fund. You know, when we had a discussion about this presentation, that's something that hasn't been in there previously, but I do find it a good idea. Even though it's a smaller fund, you can argue you really don't need to have it here. But we have a significant amount of money at the town level that runs through that fund. So to be able to visualize that and have a basis of the discussion with the board members is great. And as I'm sure you guys know, we have some other minor funds that have to do like street lighting, fire hydrants, that have funding in them that aren't here, but this covers the vast majority of what's represented in the town's budget. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't have any questions right this second. Council members, any questions?
Question for you.
Yep.
So you mentioned the deadline of being June 30th, I believe. Is that a New York State requirement?
So that's pertaining to the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. They want to have the annual financial report that we file for the town issued by June 30th. And that's a hard deadline across the board for anyone that's issuing. It's called an ACFR, an Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Not all towns do. Cheektowaga is one of them. So therefore, that June 30th deadline is in place.
And the reason I ask is, you had mentioned this being, very helpful to prepare future budgets. And one thing that I've struggled with is having some information like this much earlier in the year would be very beneficial. I don't know if you foresee a path to make that happen, or something we can do on our end that you can speak to.
Yeah, well, I would say, especially for a town this size, it's quite the undertaking to get the financials ready for an audit. I mean, there's a whole process behind the scenes that happens before we even step in. I think considering a town for this size to come in May and have everything pretty much ready to be audited is a pretty good mark, I guess, if you will. We have other entities that are way farther behind that we deal with, that don't have their books ready or in order. It doesn't look great to reporting agencies, regulatory agencies, when you start falling behind. Cheektowaga is in compliance with everything, and there's no issues on that front. So starting a little bit earlier, I'm not sure if it would really, really move the needle too much as far as who we report to. I understand the numbers would be beneficial to you earlier, but that's something we can explore in the future if it makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments from board members? All right, I believe we're all set then.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Yep.
Okay. Our next order of business on the agenda is the 1135 Skajakwita Creek project. We do have a resolution up on the agenda this evening, so I think it best that we have a brief discussion about this project before we get into the resolution on the agenda. And with that, we've got our town planner, Dan Young. The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, board members. Regarding 1111 Skajakwita Creek, I'm just going to give a little background and then a brief explanation on what the resolution that is before you this evening. The United States Army Corps of Engineers and Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper are actively engaged in an aquatic ecosystem restoration initiative for a segment of Skajakwita Creek. A feasibility study has been completed with a final draft to be adopted by the Army Corps this August. At this time, the Army Corps is seeking to take the next steps in preparation of putting the feasibility study into action. Just to give a little backstory on how we got here, the Army Corps of Engineers, as a federal sponsor, began engaging non-federal sponsors such as Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper and the town of Cheektowaga since 2020, developing this feasibility study. The feasibility report outlines a scope that would see the implementation of ecosystem restoration for measures of improvement of water and wetland quality, riparian habitats, channel aquatic habitats in geomorphic conditions for the mainstream of Skajakwita Creek and associated tributaries to offset negative impacts of previous measures such as channelization and rerouting the streams via underground tunnels. The ecosystem restoration measures would include the establishment of a two-stage channel / floodplain bench. Just to give you a visualization, currently the channel is pitched downwards towards the stream. A bench is literally like, think of like a park bench, and that's how your stream bank would sit now. It would go up, plateau, and then water would be able to back into that, go up more, and then plateau back out to the main grade. In addition to that, there's also riparian buffers that would be either installed or restored along the creek line. This basically is a vegetation buffer that allows for stormwater runoff from grasslands, parking lots to be filtered through before it hits the main channel of the tributary. And then removal of invasive plantings and preparation of a maintenance plan for the town to enact annually, just as far as such as like plantings and when to cut, what time of year to cut, to ensure that the plantings that are there thrive at appropriate times in the year. In preparation of this feasibility report to be closed out by the Army Corps, the sponsor has prepared a budget for the next phase of design and construction. Total budget cost is $6,701,000. The federal share of that is $5,025,750. The non-federal share is $1,675,000, $250. At this time, there's an opportunity from conversations with our engineering department, Army Corps, and Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper to look at opportunities of how this gets funded as a non-federal sponsor or the local sponsor. It is believed that there is funding to cover the, and I got to get this wording right because you have the local sponsor for the federal dollars and the local sponsor for state dollars here. So please ask questions at the end if you need clarity. The non-federal sponsor has the opportunity to cover the local federal share via the funds found in the state under the New York State Water Quality Improvement Project, WQIP, under the section in that program for fish and wildlife habitat restoration and enhancement. The WQIP funds are a competitive statewide reimbursement grant program and would require a 25% local match of the funds requested. So you have a 25% match for the federal dollars to be unlocked. We're right now looking at the opportunity to use state funds to unlock that federal funding, which also requires a 25% match. It was confirmed in discussions that by New York State Division of Water's grants team that for this particular part of the program, Federal Continuing Authorities Program or CAP funds would cover the local match required for the local match at the state level. Everyone follow me at this point? There's two different local matches we're talking about, federal and a state. The Army Corps has recognized the belief that said funding is available. It hasn't been finalized. This is kind of them getting their ducks in a row so when August hits, they can sign off on things. The way it works right now with the figures in front of us, the town would be liable for a local match under state funding requirements in the range of $500,000 to $418,813. We included just in notes in the resolution, the maximum ask. Right now, we're looking at a target budget of $418,813. So getting to what the resolution that is before you tonight, if the resolution were to be adopted, it would follow it would establish the following. The town would acknowledge and accept responsibilities to continue as a local non-federal sponsor. The town would acknowledge and accept to attempt to secure additional funds via the state WQIP program, inclusive of securing a bond under a separate resolution for reimbursable funds. The town would acknowledge of the contingency that the Army Corps, or the federal government in this case, is to recognize and reimburse funds as noted above prior to the grant submission with a written agreement, and if such is not established, it shall be cause for the town to withdraw as the local non-federal sponsor and be cause for relinquishment of responsibilities established. And lastly, it would acknowledge the town of no responsibility for the federal cost share required of the local non-federal sponsor if additional grant funding cannot be secured in lieu of direct town funds. I know I just gave you guys a lot, so please ask questions. The Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper and United States Army Corps of Engineers could not be available tonight. They would be available at the second meeting this month, though, if you guys would like them.
I have one question right out of the gate.
Sure.
We talked about a few different dollar amounts here and matching and all that.
Yes.
Total cost of the project is $6.7 million.
Yep.
It's 6701000.
Yep.
How much of that is the town of Cheektowaga actually on the hook for? Because as I understand this, you have the federal dollars.
Correct.
And then you have the state WQIP dollars. And you can use dollars from each of these portions from the federal to unlock the state, and then you can use dollars to cover these matching portions. As I understand this to this point, the only financial obligation the town would have would be the interest payments on bonding we would have to take out to front the match at the state. Is that accurate, or are we looking at the interest and then the additional 338 to 400,000?
That is how it's been framed up to this point. This is where we have the contingency of we need documents that, recognize that. And so far we haven't received that from the Army Corps. And that's where, this resolution hopefully combats against that if they don't recognize that those funds wouldn't be there. But yes, as it stands, the understanding I have is that we would be only on the hook for the interest if we were to go forward. I did have a late email this afternoon from our engineering department that felt differently on this matter. I don't know if everyone's got the same email, but I believe you did, Mr. Nowak. So that's maybe something you guys may want to discuss with our engineering department.
Yeah, in front of the board members is a draft alternative to the resolution that we'll have a brief discussion on when that comes up. But the state portion of the match is 1.675, as you said,
Yep.
$1.675 million. And then there's the additional 250. So it's a significant amount of money. And if we're able to get that through WQIP, that covers the non-federal portion. But then we get to the question of interest payments. And if you think about interest rates these days, Brian, they're around 4.5%.
Correct.
Okay, so if you're looking at interest of 4.5%, the real rate of interest, we're probably talking about real interest over the life of a bond that's somewhere in the avenue of $400,000 to $500,000. And I'm just off the top of my head guesstimating that. It could be a little less. It's almost certainly closer to 500, maybe a little more, depending on the nature of the loan. So when we're talking about the actual cost of the 6.7 being covered in state and federal money, that is true. But if we are taking out a bond to front the state portion and get reimbursed through this grant, yes, you'll get reimbursed, but only on the principal. We're going to absorb the interest cost associated with this as proposed.
To be clear for the board, I agree with your statement that we would be incurring the interest. It's not to say that the federal dollars wouldn't cover that. That, again, hasn't been confirmed.
So if we're able to work that out, we can address the interest question in addition, you're saying? With further discussion?
My understanding, yeah, based on the dialogue so far, I believe that's something we could work out. This was more about getting the grant filed and then, at least having that financial vehicle moving while the rest of the I's and T's get dotted and crossed.
All right, and the last thing I had was projects like this that involve a lot of partners are tough because someone has to go first, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And that's kind of the situation we're dealing with this with, which is, it's a good idea, and there are people that are coming to the plate to help put this together. But someone has to go first, someone has to take, to take the leap, take the risk, whatever it may be. And I'm sure on all sides, there's a little bit of angst, frustration, unanswered questions and all that. But the interest piece of this has not been totally sorted out yet, just for the board's understanding. Ooh, that sun is bright. So with that, we'll open it up to the council members. Councilman Pulaski.
I have a couple questions here. So after all of that, you know, funding sources, where it's coming from, all the partners and everything, Corps of Engineers, Buffalo Riverkeeper, and the town is the lead on this project, though, is that correct or not?
No, the Army Corps of Engineers would be the lead on the project.
They're the lead agency, but the town's responsible for securing alternate funding through the grants and applying, or is the Corps of Engineer going to take the lead on that, make the applications, and then we're just a recipient?
No, we would be the lead on the application for the state.
Okay,
But for the actual project itself, overall, the federal agency would be the lead.
okay. And my next question is, if this resolution with these changes go through today, this does not tie us or obligate us to this project. This is just to tie up the study piece of it all? Am I correct?
It is to acknowledge that the town is willing to continue forward, provided that appropriate documentation is put forth from the Army Corps. I don't know if our town attorneys had a chance to look at this at all yet, if there's anything that you disagree with, but I felt that this is an opportunity to kind of start helping get stuff in place. If they're really serious about this project, there's an opportunity here, but I also understand from an official standpoint and your side of the table that you guys may want to see more from the Army Corps in this situation, and rightfully so. This is taxpayer dollars here.
And my last question really comes to this board, just something to ponder is, instead of bonding, do we have other alternatives? Can we tap into our reserve fund and knowing that money's coming back and then put it back, 6 months to a year, whenever it is? Is it a risky move? I don't know. We'll have to talk to Kraus on, but something else besides bonding to think of for this project, are there alternatives to it? We don't have to have that answer now.
But if we did a mix, we would cut the bonding interest in half. If we did that in whole, we can eliminate that interest question. As you said, it's something worth looking into further. I would have hesitation on that, but I'm open to it. I would prefer a route where we can get this covered to cover our interest as well. I think we both want the same answer, where the town isn't covering $500,000 in interest payments as part of this agreement. It's all a question of how we get there.
So I have a couple questions as well. So on this, if it works, we could get about 5 million in federal investments to improve our creek and town park, right? So
Yeah,
if
from
you
the
do
federal
math-
share, yeah.
Yeah, so it's about 5 million. And then also when we're talking about the numbers as a non-federal share, we mentioned 1,675,250 and on a reimbursable grant, right? So who will then put up the initial funding for the reimbursement? Is that the
So
town?
that's where the bonding would come into play, is the town would put it forth under a bond, and then we would coordinate with the Army Corps to receive reimbursements through the state
So,
once those payments are applied and the work is completed.
so why wouldn't why wouldn't they be,
I've asked that question too, and I haven't got a clear answer.
oh, okay. That would be an answer that I would look
Yeah.
to know, like,
That's something that we can ask them again.
and also we mentioned as far as the bond, you did answer that question, that it would come back to the board for authorization before anything.
I only heard part of that. For the bond, what?
The bond.
What about it?
If we were to go with the bond portion of it, that will have to come back to the board for authorization.
Correct, yes. Yeah, this would not be authorizing a bond. This is just more about recognition of our expectations out of the Army Corps in this situation, that we continue to be supportive as the local non-federal sponsor, and then to pursue the grant and actually formally file it. Right now, we have our grant writer on retainer. There, I believe, is an active draft being worked on, because I believe we retain them annually. This would just be a recognition from the board to say, yep, we're good to file this.
As we know how grants work sometimes, what if we don't get the grant? Does that mean a project stops? Or,
I believe I covered in here that if that grant weren't to be secured in the last whereas, let me just reread it here. Yeah, so in the last whereas, I have the town acknowledgement, or town acknowledges of no responsibility for the required federal cost share required of the local non-federal sponsor if additional grant funding cannot be secured in lieu of direct town funds.
gotcha.
So to me, I felt that would cover our butts in this instance.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Council members?
Vern?
This has come up previously, correct?
I believe there was
I don't know if it was last year, the year
I
before.
believe it was last year, and I believe they came forth to talk about an alternative being considered added. I know there was kind of like the final push to get the feasibility report wrapped up, and they had an outreach meeting coming forth, and they wanted to discuss that with the public. So it was kind of like a recap of what they've done to this point, and then they had the public outreach meeting at the Rhinestein Library over on Lawson.
Okay, so I'm just wondering what happened when this came up to approve this and between that time and now. And another question that came up during that time was DEC involvement and how that relates to our consent order, if at all.
So are you asking if this resolution specifically has come up?
This project.
The project has been discussed before the board, but this resolution hasn't come before the board. So I don't know if that clarifies what you're looking for.
Yeah, we had visuals of shrubs and everything being planted in the,
Yep.
you know,
That was
the
just kind of
bridges.
discussing one of the, what the design and repair efforts could look like along that shoreline, along that'd be the southern side of Scajaquada Creek in Town Park, just to give a visualization for the board, and then seeing what public support there was for including that alternate, which from my understanding that has been included in the final report and this budget here.
Okay. So these are one and the same, and there's not a reason why it didn't move forward then, or?
At that point, it didn't move forward because there wasn't really a resolution for supporting the design and construction phase. It was more about, this is where we are in the feasibility report. This is what we're looking to do to close it out. If there was a resolution associated with it, it escapes my mind at this point, but I'd be happy to find that out for you.
Okay. And is there any direct relation to our consent order at all? Or do they have any opinion on this? Because
I
that's-
don't believe it's directly related. From my understanding, the DEC consent order is related to stormwater runoff and infiltration to our infrastructure. This is more about just ground runoff into the creek and restoring the work that's been done, 50, 60 years ago to channelize the creek. They act in conjunction with one another to provide cleaner water, but I don't believe they're directly correlated to each other.
Okay.
And I did see a head nod no from Mr. Bowen, so I believe I'm safe in the words I just said.
Council members, Councilman Nowicki. I'm
might-
sorry, Councilman Thomas, you're all set.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
This might be getting into the weeds, but when you were talking, I heard you say something about that it's not necessarily saying that the federal grant wouldn't pay that interest. Essentially what I'm getting to is, do you have any knowledge of grants of this type, if they historically have paid interest on loans, or if that's kind of out of your wheelhouse at the moment?
That's out of my wheelhouse.
Fair enough. Appreciate it.
Last question. You had mentioned there was opposition to some degree, an email sent. Do you know what that was entailed?
Yes, our engineering department emailed out today some modifications to the resolution that they felt may fit more suited for it, as well as discrepancy in the finances. I believe where the discrepancy came in is under the state funding match. For the local match of the state funding, the town would be responsible for $418,000 and $813. Under this grant program, 20% can only be used for design and 80% can only be used for construction. At 20%, you're looking at $83,763. At 80% for construction, you're looking at $335,050 of that pot would be split that way. I can follow up on paper. It looks a lot cleaner than me trying to verbally describe it, because right now we got federal local match share and state local match share. So, but I believe that's where the discrepancy came in, is we've been going back and forth with these agencies, and one of the threads, there was funding math that didn't add up, got corrected, and then got corrected again. Pat, would you like to speak on this? Because I'm assessing your email, so I want to make
Right.
sure I'm understanding what you proposed clearly.
We need to confirm how the local match works with the WQIP grant, because traditionally it's 25% of the grant amount, not 25% of the project amount. So you have the grant amount plus the 25% match would equal the total of the 1.675 million for the local match for the federal share. Or for the federal project, rather.
Right, which I believe is what would be asked for.
Correct. We'll need to sit down and
We can,
go over the numbers. I
I'm
suggest
more than happy to
Brian-
sit down and go over this.
I suggested to Brian earlier that the resolution be either pulled or tabled tonight.
Okay.
I did discuss this with Bernie Rotella on the way over to make sure it wouldn't be an issue if we waited to pass this resolution at the meeting on the 28th, and he said it wouldn't be an issue as long as he gets the resolution within the day or two after that. He doesn't want to wait until the 31st because the deadline's the 31st of July, so.
Okay, and I believe Bernie did clarify that we don't need to have the bonding in place. It would just be a demonstration of financial, a financial assessment in place that shows how the money would be secured. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah, part of the purpose of the resolution is the state wants to see basically acknowledgement from the town.
Right.
That they're aware of the local match and how they're going to fund it. The bonding does not need to be in place tonight, or you don't have to have a bonding resolution tonight, but they want to know what the plan is to finance the local share of the WQIP grant.
Okay.
Or a quick question that came to mind. There are some restrictions when receiving federal grants
Yep.
upon whether you opt out of working with certain agencies. ICE is one of them, where you're not able to receive federal funding and they will restrict those. Does that come to mind at all, or has that been discussed? Because I wouldn't want to say, yeah, let's do this project, and then, of course, we are not
I see
eligible
where you're going with that.
for the funding.
I see where you're going with that.
That's a big dollar amount.
What I'll say is there are different federal pots of money and where the funding comes from. I don't know if that type of action would be a blanket action for federal funding to be released. That's something we would have to bring up and bring that answer back to you, because that's a valid point. There may have been past actions that may cause limitations on funding.
Okay, yeah. I think that's important to know at least. Sorry to put you on the spot, but yeah,
It's all right. I can handle the tough questions.
always do. Thank you. That's all I got.
Board members, before we wrap this up? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I think we're all set for the moment.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Like I said, in front of everyone is a is a proposed amendment to the resolution on our agenda. I'm going to motion to pull that from consent. I do think we should have some discussion about Mr. Bowen's suggestion here. We do know what the timeline is. We don't have to act tonight. We can take that up when we get to the resolution. We have one more brief presentation before public comment. I know we're jam-packed tonight, but we're going to pass the podium over to our assessor, Janine Sweet.
I'd like to thank Janine for coming here and doing a mini presentation on this because I've been getting some phone calls and emails regarding this. So thank you.
You're welcome. I don't have a lot of information, but I can at least get you guys up to speed with what I do know at this point in time. So, good evening, council. As you are all aware, New York State did pass a law to allow local taxing jurisdictions to adopt the option for property tax exemption to disabled veterans who meet the state mandated requirements. Information that's been given to the assessment offices at this point has been very limited. Interpretations of that information has been very mixed. Our Erie County Assessors Association has reached out to Erie County for guidance, maybe some clarification and some impact reporting. At this point in time, we have not gotten any correspondence back from Erie County. Our association president is meeting this Thursday, I believe, with legislative members to hopefully get some further clarification for the county assessment teams. And he will be relaying that after Thursday's meeting. I did reach out to another county and kind of picked the director's brain on what she knew of what was going on and how to interpret the legal jargon. And I was able to get some guidance from her, but again, we're still tripped up on a few verbiage nuances. So at this time, what I do know is the exemption was put back to optional. So again, towns, schools, county would need to opt into a local option to adopt it through local law and resolution. It is a 100% exemption for qualified veterans for their primary residence. It allows them fully exempt from taxation that includes all special districts and any special ad valorem levies as well. Qualification requirements at this point, they must have been discharged or released from active military, naval, or space or air service performed under Article 10 of U.S. Code. They must have a qualifying condition as defined in Section 1 of the Veterans Service Law, which I provided to each of you there. And they must have received discharge other than dishonorable or bad conduct. Or they can also be eligible by being a discharged LGBT veteran and have received also a discharge other than dishonorable or bad conduct. They must be considered permanently and totally disabled. Applicants will be required to provide documentation to assessment offices from the VA, identifying both their disability percentage, as well as indicating that they are a permanent and total disability classification. They also still have to fall under the Section 458A requirement to have served during a period of war. This is set to go into effect October 1st of 2026. At this point, the confusion, I think for the most part, lies within the interpretation of the 100%. The original, I gave to you a copy of the law as it was written originally, and it also shows in there the modifications that were done by New York State before it was passed with the state budget. You'll see in there that the 100% was omitted. There is some contradicting information that I have gotten as to what does that exactly mean. Permanent and total disability seems to be the guideline that the law is focused on. I have been told two different things. I've been informed that a veteran can be 100% disabled with permanent, or let me rephrase that, can only be permanent and total disability with 100%. But I've also been told that, and this information is coming from VA resources, so it's, again, contradicting, that you could have a veteran, for example, who is designated 40% disabled, however, they are deemed permanent and total disabled. So that is kind of the one piece that we're trying to get narrowed down is it only 100%? Or is there a possibility that we could have some 40 or 70% disabled who are eligible for the 100% exemption because they've been classified as total and permanent disability? So we're just trying to get some clarification on that. I did also reach out again today to the other county that I've been working with a little bit and did confirm with her. She is meeting, the director there, meeting with the VA services for clarification on that later this month. So hopefully by the end of this month, we kind of have some more solid information on the verbiage and the interpretation of that. So with that being said, estimating impact to the town is a little tricky. It's easy to estimate an exemption impact when you're talking 100%. What I did is I kind of just gave you at the end there the little last one of the pages with some totals. Currently right now, the town of Cheektowaga has 338 veterans who are eligible for the disability exemption at 100% disabled. That's a total for the town of 14,412,350 taxable assessed dollars. So that is the number that is being reduced off of your total taxable line. I also gave you guys a copy of the final roll page, just so you can kind of see where those numbers come from. So the town taxable, we're at 71 billion. Sorry, there's no commas. 7,189,000. So when you're looking at it, 14 million is a very relatively small number. If all 100% current residents are also totally and permanently disabled, and all of them qualified, is really the only way I can give a projection. The increased taxable reduction would be an additional 47,186,127. What I did to kind of gauge how this would affect each parcel, I calculated out the taxable value to that number. So the tax value based on last year's town tax rates comes out to $311,000 roughly. When I applied that to the parcels in the town, removing roll section 8 parcels and also removing the parcels that are currently receiving the exemption, for the town portion, it comes out to about $8.95 per parcel. Obviously, your larger businesses are going to be paying a higher rate. Your smaller residentials are going to have a lower, but that's your average per parcel on what one could expect to see as an increase on their tax bill if it is 100% and all of these qualified. I did also add in there the highway as well. And so that is included in the $895. I gave you a copy of a tax bill for a resident who currently has the veteran exemption on his property. And one of the things I want to point out is the special districts. So currently right now, the special districts the disability exemption does not apply to special districts. So when you see on the taxable value for this particular site, the town and highway, you'll see a lower taxable value because the exemption is applied there. However, the special districts is going to be the full assessed value of that home. So projecting for special districts, I have an average per parcel of $11.68. That one's, again, a little tougher to kind of estimate because not all parcels are in all of the same special districts. I just went with a general worst case scenario if all of these special districts applied. So between the two, you're looking at an average of about $22 to $23 per parcel as a projected impact. Most of the provisions at this point, as it's been signed and is included in state budget, I'm not anticipating any additional major changes. It's more just at this point for us obtaining some clarification so that we can properly estimate. If the exemption verbiage is permanent and total and 100% is, you know, it could be 40% or 60%. Obviously, these projections could potentially be higher. And there's really no way to estimate how many of the other disability exemptions we have would qualify at that point. So it's kind of a gray area. This, to me, right now is kind of a starting point of, okay, this is what it could be. It could be more impactful, I guess. So does anybody have any questions? That's a lot of information. I said I was going to talk fast.
I don't, the questions I had, you were able to answer for me, so, board members?
Just, again, how many veterans we're anticipating that this?
At 100%, we have 338. At 100% disability that currently receive the disability veteran exemption. Total for the town, at any percentage, we have 744.
A quick question. Is there any reason we can't write our own law saying 100% disability, or do we have to opt into the exact law of New York State, which seems unclear right now?
I do not believe that we are able to modify what the state law is. Okay. I can double check and verify and just I'll get back to you on that, but okay. I would say probably not.
So the state law would be the minimum threshold. So for example, if the state said 90% was the threshold, then we could opt to go with 100% and go above that. We face a similar situation, and I'm probably going to get, you know, tomatoes or something thrown at me right here with the senior exemptions. There's the minimum threshold set by the state, but we as a town could go above and beyond that. And seeing the fact that they're already at 100% request, it's just, you know, is it 100% totaled up or what? That's what we need to work out. We cannot go lower than that. Question. In regards to veterans exemptions for this or any or all, it's just home of record where they're staying, no rental properties and all that for exemptions. And
it has to be their primary residence.
Their primary residency and no businesses, correct?
Correct, no. We actually ran into that this year with a particular site.
Hearing none, seeing none?
Okay.
All set.
If you think of any questions down the road, email me. I will keep you updated as I get educated a little further on that.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Madam Assessor.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I appreciate everybody's patience out there in the audience this evening. Our next order of business is public comment period. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker shall speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. We have 9 speakers signed up. Our first is representing Southline Little League.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joe Gangarosa. I'm the president of Southline Athletic Association, and the reason why I'm here today is that we've been receiving a lot of complaints recently regarding some of the activities that are going on in our organization. One of them is loud music during our games. We have walk-up music for the kids to enjoy when they're walking up to get them motivated. We also have lighting at night, which we turn off before we leave. I'm not sure if there's any specific ordinance of time when the lights have to be turned off, but I know that we do turn them off in a reasonable time, usually between 10 and 10:30. Our last game ends around 10 o'clock and takes about 15, 20 minutes for everyone to collect their stuff and leave. They usually are very prompt about that because it's late, the kids have to go home. And also, we've been receiving some issues with the same neighbor. All this is coming from the same person. Kids playing kickball in our diamonds, which we play baseball there. I don't see why we can't play kickball. Some of the kids get together between games. They join, they become friends. They play kickball. They do a little wiffle ball. They're very peaceful. No issues that we can see, but it seems like we're receiving a lot of issues. There was a couple things that I do have to say. We did have a landscaper that came in that was a little bit motivated, trying to get done a little bit early, showed up one day at 5:30. Can't have that. We immediately cut that out. So, 7 o'clock is the very minimum that someone can show up and do our landscaping. So that, I admit, that was not necessarily our fault, but we didn't communicate with the landscaper what time they can actually show up. And then there was a situation with dust coming from our fields when we're prepping our fields. Sometimes it gets a little dirty. Dust blows in the air and can't help Mother Nature. I mean, we've had some issues with rain. We've been having to put a little bit more dirt on the field and it dries up and it is what it is. So I was asked to come today to bring this to your attention and hopefully we can get a peaceful resolution at some point with our neighbor. We don't feel that we're in violation of anything. I've been very fair with the neighbor. We've been trying to cut back on some of these things just to be a good neighbor, but it seems like no matter what we do, it's still gonna happen.
I do have a question before
Sure.
you leave. There's a phone number right at the top of the sheet. The second digit, is that a 9?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my handwriting's horrible.
That is no problem. I can read the rest of it. I just
Yep.
wanted to confirm that.
And my email address, I didn't, it's mrzoomzoom@townauto.com.
Okay,
That's the best way to reach me.
Town Auto. You
Yep.
got it. All right, thank you very much.
Cool. Any questions for anybody or good? All right, cool. Thank you.
If anybody wants to reach out, I do have the contact information. Our next speaker is Sandy Prisblack.
Good evening. Resolution 2026-454, good cause eviction, public hearing. This resolution should be passed so that residents can be heard at the next town board meeting, as it is currently written. 2026-458, 1111 Harlem Road. If memory serves, the developer withdrew his bid due to the 2024 board repeated tabling of resolutions related to proceeding with the project, which put the financing, which in part was a grant received to build affordable housing, at risk. Excuse me, I've got an exacerbation of my COPD tonight. I'm having trouble here. The town of Cheektowaga is in dire need of affordable housing. I request that this resolution be passed to prevent any further delays. 2026-459, sounds like you're going to table it, the Scajaquada Creek project funding. I feel it should be passed so the grant can be started, the process can be started to apply for the grant. To me, that's a no-brainer, but apparently there's issues with that. 2026-490, establishing the Cheektowaga Police Department Community Advisory Council. The proposed advisory council, as outlined in this resolution, reads more like, let's have some play dates with police than an actual accountability board. Oh, right, the word accountability is not contained in this resolution. While better than what we have now, which is nothing, without oversight, investigative, and accountability to residents for violations of our civil rights, it reads as a performative resolution with no real opportunity for change. Thank you.
And I ask the audience to remain silent during public comment. Our next speaker is Dan Collender.
Good evening. I want to talk about 2026-460. I sat on the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee 10 years ago, sat on it all 4 years it existed. We had brought up for taking all these bonds and doing exactly what you want to do with them. Okay. At a quick look, it looks like a great idea. But when you run it through AI, it points out that it's a slippery slope under the current terms because of the interest rate. If the interest rate was higher, it'd be a good deal. But you're going to spend $95,000 of your savings just doing the paperwork to reissue bonds in order to consolidate them. So that's going to leave you with about 148,000 savings. Okay, that 148,000 is contingent that the market on the bonds doesn't increase the interest rate even just a couple ticks. Okay, so you're right on the fence of this being a hero or a zero. You could fall off the fence and if you don't get it done immediately. It's just the way the numbers are working. Like I said, if the interest rate was higher and the savings was greater, it wouldn't be that crucial. But right now you're on the fence. That makes it, should we do it or shouldn't we do it? We're going to get burned on it and did all this paperwork for nothing. Another thing, I want to bring it up again. We still do not have any way to file for grievances, assessment grievances online. We still have to submit them. Okay, Gary Borick put up a thing in my group the other day that listed only 9 people filed for grievances. 8 of those were commercial properties. Only 1 of them was residential. Okay, when are we going to get a system where the average Joe that owns a property in this town can actually file their grievance online and make it a lot simpler than what it is? It's complicated. I'll admit, I've done a bunch of them. They are complicated. They're time consuming. The savings is negligible sometimes. And then our incompetent Board of Assessment Review likes to reject most of them. So they rejected all of mine. So they're batting 1,000 on that. But I'm batting 1,000 winning when I go to almost 1,000, 999 and 900, whatever. Nonetheless, we need to have a way to file those online instead of having to fill out all our paperwork, bring it down here to town hall and have it rubber stamped and put in a folder and give it an appointment. Okay, we're in the 21st century, 26 years into it. There is a better way to do it. I don't know why we're not doing it. We brought it up last year, bringing it up again this year, and I'm pretty sure we brought it up the year before. Yet here we go, still not doing it for whatever reason, and we've been through like 5 or 6 assessors already. So that definitely needs a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wally Carriero.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Nowicki. I want to congratulate you on your new home in the city of Buffalo, the one where the document said it's your primary resident, but it didn't take much for us to talk to your neighbors to see you only pick up your mail every 3 days in Cheektowaga. So now my question goes to, are you going to be a man and submit your resignation to the board? And are you, Mr. Nowak, going to accept that resignation before July 31st so that we can have an election and choose the replacement instead of having you hand pick another replacement? You obviously have to be a resident in the town and you need to live here. I don't know how your decision process can move forward when you're invested into a very expensive property in the city of Buffalo. Along the same line, I want to talk about what happened yesterday, 3:30. It was on the website that there was going to be an ethics meeting. There was no agenda. There was no agenda packet. There was no word of it. Did that meeting actually happen?
Meeting did not happen because there was not quorum.
So we don't have any ethics in this town. We have a man that fleeced a community association sitting over here. We have a guy that just got elected that now purchased a house in the city of Buffalo. We have people living off of grant money, but we have no ethic board. Do you see a problem with this?
We have an ethics board, and we'll be talking about that under new business.
Under new business, and that comes after the public comment period? Okay, thank you.
Before the final end of, and before the end of the meeting, yes.
Before the end
So
of the
there'll be
meeting.
an additional meeting opportunity for public comment.
And the last comment is, I don't think it's very comfortable in this room. I think it's kind of warm. We spent how much money to redo this room? It's a little warm in here to me. Anybody else have that feeling? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jess Greenwald.
Get myself set up real quick. All right. All right. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jess Greenwald, and I am a resident of Cheektowaga. Once again, there is a fundamental disconnect in this room. We keep telling you guys exactly what this community wants. We keep providing exactly why we need it. And there are members of this board who keep not listening. Constituents of all backgrounds and professions keep coming to this microphone to ask for basic transparency and accountability, as well as policy change since the beginning of this year. We haven't just asked, though. We've done the heavy lifting and the research for you guys regarding the ICE collusion, the flock cameras, the Lexapol policies. We even went as far as to draft a civilians review board resolution that the people actually want. We've brought to you serious constitutional, fiscal, and security risks regarding flock surveillance cameras. We handed you the evidence, and yet due to your inaction and refusal to listen promptly, we missed the window to cancel the contract for this year. LAPD, which is the nation's third largest police department, just canceled their flock contract. They said, we don't want this because of the privacy and security concerns. So if LAPD can do that, why can't Cheektowaga? We exposed that this data was being shared with 2,600 outside organizations, which is a massive amount, and this town board wasn't aware of it, to my knowledge, up until we brought it up. When we audited the data ourselves, we proved the mismanagement. We found a massive portion of the search reasons cannot be determined. They're hidden between single characters or letters. We found searches directly against policy, with one most egregiously saying wanted by ICE, and that has always been against the policy with flock. The board's response to this glaring misuse was to quietly remove access to 2,400 of those and now try to placate us with a civilian advisory board that's a half measure that proves that we're not really being listened to still. And we only got a day notice on this also to review and respond, which is pretty not cool. Councilmember Lewis, as a sponsor of this resolution, I have to ask you, what research have you done on civilian oversight bodies to make this Toothless Advisory Council your recommendation? And why should you be the chair of that when you've not responded to constituents regarding concerns within the police department or reached out to the advocates who have been fighting for this since the beginning of the year? I mean, currently we have no accountability mechanisms in place for police misconduct, which just forces taxpayers to fund massive, unaffordable lawsuits. Genuine oversight needs to be more than just conversations. A proper oversight board actually enhances safety for officers, and good police officers with nothing to conceal should welcome these measures.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you short, but we're over 3 minutes.
I do just want to say that the Attorney General did draft guidance on this for Buffalo,
Okay.
and I have a letter to
Okay,
give to you
thank
guys
you.
regarding that. You guys have given people additional time before.
Your time's up. Thank you.
You gave a gentleman a search literally just the letter S thousands of times, an extra minute and a half, and you didn't even move for the chance to give it to
Hold on. Our next speaker is Rachel Martinez.
Make sure she gets 5 minutes. You can speak as long as you like, okay? And we're gonna let everybody do that tonight.
You gonna be nice to me today?
Don't even bother putting the timer on there. Sure, why not? You went over your time anyhow, because he's just pausing it and letting you go, so why not? We'll give you the extra time at the end, just so she can continue.
All right, Rachel?
Please.
Rachel, you're up.
All right. After reviewing Resolution 490, it appears to me that what's being proposed as the Community Advisory Council essentially already exists. This is really nothing more than a public comment session focused on the police. We've already shown that oversight is more than necessary, especially when it comes to Flock. Like was mentioned earlier, there's searches that are being made against policy, our data was being overshared, and none of these issues were fixed until they were brought to your attention by the people sitting here that are not paid or elected. If we're able to find this many issues within just the publicly available information, don't you think we should take that a little step further to allow for some civilians to be granted access to the rest of the operations and data? The current resolution is nothing more than a feather in someone's cap right now. I'm still frustrated about the ICE resolution, which similarly made really no actual change. I didn't expect to stand here and agree with Vern, but actually at this point, I'm in agreement. There's a lot of resolutions that are thrown out here that are just statements of values and don't actually do anything. I'm kind of sick of people being able to pat themselves on the back and act like they passed resolutions that are making changes. But we've had a lot of resolutions that are doing nothing at the end of the day. This resolution reads that it shall serve solely as an advisory capacity and shall not possess investigative, disciplinary, operational, or policy-making authority over the police department or its personnel. So I guess I'm asking, let's stop putting Band-Aids on gushing wounds. We need to get to the root of some of the issues and actually make changes that matter and set things in place to hold people accountable, or it's really just kind of a waste of everybody's time. Tiffany, I'm truly hoping you can prove me wrong, explain the plans moving forward, see what this is, what it's supposed to accomplish, and how. And if you or the rest of the board can't really give an answer, then I'd suggest pulling the resolution and taking the time to drop something that's actually actionable. On a totally separate note, I continue to support the proposed good cause eviction resolution. I do think that is fully actionable and needed. I agree that our website and our ability to do things online is very much lacking. There's very limited information. I drove all over the place trying to just get a resident card today, got shuffled around, pointed to the wrong buildings, people giving me times that aren't listed anywhere. And then also just wanted to throw out Hanley Park is still an extremely kind of abandoned park at this point that's falling apart. It's in my neighborhood. That's where I take my kid to play. And I have to sit there and watch because of all the rust and busted up metal in that park. So hoping someone can take a closer look. I know I sent pictures to Monica, so just hoping for an update on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Mara Chekhov.
Hello, Council. I'm here to speak in support for the hearing of Resolution 2026-454 for the good cause eviction. Good cause eviction has been an available law since 2024 and has been enacted in multiple cities throughout the state. We're a bit behind the ball on that, and that's time we caught up. And in general, I'm in favor of any kind of hearing that allows the town to be a more equitable place to speak to our board and to get things passed that people want. I'm using that as a bit of tie-in to to something that Councilman Thompson specifically said he doesn't want to hear anything more. The Flock camera that was passed. Simply put, for every one person who spoke in support of Flock, you had 7 against. Just on that alone, the fact that this council, that many people on this council continue to support this is frankly ridiculous. If your own people don't want something and we elected you into these positions, it is just simple public policy to listen to what they want and to enact the policies that that all these people are voting for and speaking for. I'm not going to give any more numbers. Everyone's done that. I'm just going to put that right in front of you. Stop going against the people of Cheektowaga. If so many people keep coming up here, so many different people from different walks of life, and they are willing to say, we don't want this, listen. Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Brendan Gilbert.
Thank you, members of the town board, and good evening. I'm here to speak in support of the good cause eviction proposal, which I believe is 454. And also, perhaps unlike some of the other speakers in support of that, you should know that I'm a landlord in Cheektowaga. I own 2 units here. So here's a landlord speaking in support of good cause evictions. How about that? The next topic that I've got for you on your existing business is this resolution 2026-465, Lawley Insurance Proposal. It looks like you've been speaking with your insurance broker. I got a question about this because it's something I've encountered in one case I've got over going on in Gates, defending someone on a misdemeanor in Gates. They have this officer who's identified them. Now, this officer has 2 internal investigations in their record. 2021, they let the crackhead that was living with them drive their car. That person crashed it into a utility pole. 2023, this officer is driving a car themselves, crash it into a utility pole again. Same car, perhaps. Fixed, I'm not sure. But what I do know is that utility pole, that's the common thread. So the question I have for you about Lawley here is, these flock cameras are all on utility poles. If someone crashes into one, are we on the hook for the wrongful death suit that we gotta defend against them? Is Flock picking up the bill for that one? Are these poles that we own or that they own? If they own them, where's the permits? Where's the licensing? Where's the process that was to be followed? I know that I haven't seen any of that yet in public. Now, turning over to Resolution 2026-490, I agree with what Sandy said about this. The police in this town do not need more PR. The police in this town are using the transparency page about flock safety to post what they label as success stories. Every action the police take poses more questions for me, questions that we're going to answer with the Freedom of Information Law. I'm not sure if I have any time left on my balance. I'd like to give it to Ms. Jess Greenwald if I could, but sadly this format doesn't allow for that. I hope she gets the time that she deserves. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Mr. David Uzar.
Evening. Last time I was here, I was asking questions about the streetlights, and you said that town takes care of the lights, and I said that they were up near my house, and it was funny. So right after that meeting, I went home and took a picture of that light. Within a week, they came and replaced the pole. Don't ask me why. I don't know what's them placards on the pole that say Town of Cheektowaga. What are they for? Who puts them there? What are they for? How do they determine what pole is bad, what light is bad? And I just said that the light was lit. Within 1 week, they replaced the pole and the light. Guess what? The light don't work. Within I forgot all about it. My wife said to me, take a look, that light don't work. And where that light is, there are no residents. There's no residents. You couldn't, well, you'll be lucky if you got a number for that, where that pole is. You'd have to look up the pole number. And that is one thing. Another thing is, Mr. Rishniak talks about, the trees all the time. And the canopy in this town is going to hell in a handbasket. It really is. You come down my street, it looks horrendous. These guys are not tree trimmers. They're just tree people that come in, they're hired by whoever, the utility company. They come and destroy it. I mean, you go through here and go through Lovejoy area and everything else. It looks terrible. My street used to be a nice canopy. Now it's terrible. And what are you going to replace? A tree that's 60 years old? Go dig one up and find it and put it on my street. Okay? And another thing was, Resolution 2026-463, I think I wrote down, replacing a slide on Raymond Street. That whole thing, that, to my knowledge, was replaced just a little over 2 years ago by a drunk, it was hit by a drunk driver. I looked it up today and I think it was in April of 2024. So you're going to replace the slide. Wasn't it done right there? It was, right now it's from me to you away from everything else in that place. And I rode down there today and there's kids sliding on that slide. Isn't it a safety hazard? I don't understand that. Why isn't it cordoned off? If you got to replace it, must be something wrong with it. So why isn't anybody looking at it? The kids were on the slide today when I was down there. I purposely looked at it, you know, and this 1111 Harlem Road, is that another property we're not going to collect tax on?
Part of the proposal involves a pilot. So there'll be
Yeah,
taxes. but
years
not-
ago, I used to come to these meetings and they say, we don't offer pilots. And then, you know, they pushed it on another agency. So this is another, they're just coming in, they're going to start coming in and getting all these tax-free places, and we're going to be up Schitt's Creek. You know, that's a TV program, by the way. So, you know, so, all right, that's all I had for now. Let's just keep bringing stuff up, and I'll come back up in here and I'll talk, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to public comment period, or the public hearings rather. And this is for a special use permit at 20 Parwood Drive. Acting clerk, the floor is yours.
Call for a public hearing was made at the June 24th town board meeting for special use permit regarding the replacement and installation of a larger, small wireless facility on an existing utility pole within the town right of way directly adjacent to 20 Parwood Drive.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our public hearing is open. This is a fairly straightforward project. Mr. Young, are you in a position to speak briefly on this? Sorry to put you on the spot. We didn't talk about this one.
It's about as summed up as it can be at this point. It's just a small wireless facility. You'll see them throughout the town. They're located about somewhere up here above my height, about 10 feet in the air. Thank you for laughing at that, Dave. I appreciate that. At least I got somebody laughing. That's pretty much it. It was an application that was filed by Verizon Wireless. William Brooking of Concertus, formerly Aerosmith Development, is representing Verizon in this instance. Just a larger apparatus. That's about all I got for that. Is there any questions I can answer at this time?
I
might as well if you guys have any questions.
Okay, you did get the invite. That's good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Mr. Brooking, I apologize. That is who's speaking right now. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Well, good evening. That was a surprise.
He did ask to join virtually. He did ask to join virtually. I was unaware that he was on virtually. So if there's any additional questions, we have the legal representative.
I feel you covered it for my purposes. I don't have any questions. Not my first rodeo as far as these small wireless facilities throughout the town go. So any council members? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none. I think we're all set, Dan.
All right.
On our sign-up sheet for public comment, we have no residents signed up to speak. I do see a hand in the audience. I'm sorry, can you approach the podium, please? Just so we can have it on the public record.
My name is Peter Criswell. I live on Knollwood Drive.
Okay.
And I was wondering if is this the pole in front of 20 Parwood or in the back of 20 Parwood?
If our guest can speak to that question, did you hear the question?
In the front.
I did, yes.
It's in the front? Okay.
Yes, this is in the front of 20 Parwood.
Okay, it's just, all right, because in the back, there is another pole. And I have a pole on Knollwood, and if that was going to be changed, I wanted to know why I couldn't change my pole 30 years ago without the starting cost of $500. Okay, that's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. With that, any additional comment by the project representative online?
Nope, that's all.
Okay. Seeing and hearing nothing else there among the audience and among the council members, I'm going to offer a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second? Second for Mr. Thompson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This public hearing is closed. And that moves us on to our next order of business this evening, which is board discussion. We're up to old business. Is there any old business among council members?
I guess I have a request on
Okay.
this. I know she's not here, so I'll bring it up to her when she is back. If we can get something listed, even if it's just a topic of the actual old business that was discussed. Because otherwise, like, oh, what do we talk about and what was forgotten about? And it just would help keep that in order there. That's all.
Anything else from council members on old business? I do have one item. Earlier in the year, there was discussions about adding periodic updates on the town's financial picture for the year. We were talking about maybe every other month, adding a report, like what's called the budget prep report. It shows a line-by-line expenditure against the town's budget. The council members have in their emails the latest budget prep report that includes expenditures against the budget through the month of June. That has been sent to the town clerk to upload on the town website. I'll follow up on that in the morning to work another avenue with somebody else with website access to get that up. But I know there's been a handful of residents really interested in that. We're working on getting it on the website. If there's anyone in particular that'd like to see that, you can send an email to bnoack@townofcheektowaga. I can forward that document until we have it available on the town's website. So if there's no other old business, we'll move on to new business. Any new business from council members? I've got one thing to kick off. This has to do with the Board of Ethics. The last two instances of putting together a Board of Ethics meeting, we have not achieved quorum. Yesterday evening, we received a resignation among one of the members. We had a vacancy. There were interviews done a little while back with a handful of candidates, and there was discussion among which two finalists would we put on the Board of Ethics. And with two openings, two finalists, I think the easiest answer is to consider the appointment of both of those individuals. We do have a monkey wrench here where there were a couple of folks that applied after those interviews. Do we interview those folks or do we move forward with the two that were interviewed? And this is to Mr. Thompson and Mr. Pilarski.
My recommendation is move forward. Like you said, we had two candidates and we're trying to figure out which of the two based off the interviews Vern and I conducted. I think it's an easy answer now. It's both candidates since we have two vacant seats. So move forward, get those two appointed sooner than later. Next meeting, put them on and let's keep this ball rolling.
So with that, I think it's the easiest answer to address both of those vacancies at the July 28th meeting. We'll get a pair of resolutions introduced for two individuals that would address that question there. We also have an appointee that on the 1st of August that term would expire. So that question we're going to have to address pretty quickly. Do we want to reappoint that individual? Does that individual want to be reappointed? It sounds like you've got partial or complete answer on that one.
I think the fair thing to do since it expires is to repost for that position, then fill the two that we have now, repost it if that person's interested. And like, in addition to the other person that is interested who filed after the fact, give them all a fair shake at it.
A lot of sense to me. And we have a couple other boards that have some openings. The Conservation Advisory Council. We also have the Historic Preservation Commission, which we've made some efforts to recruitment there within the last year. I think we need to revive those efforts, see if we can find folks willing to serve there. I have reached out to people recently that applied. They no longer had interest. So we've got 9 openings on that Historic Preservation Commission. We have 3, maybe 4 on the CCAC. I'm pretty sure it's 3. But on the town's website, on the town's social media, those positions should be posted. See if we can recruit volunteers. I was at a meeting this morning with some folks at Mount Calvary. I did mention CCAC to them. We were talking about the tree canopy of all things. And that might afford an opportunity to recruit an individual that may be willing to serve there. But That's all I've got for new business.
Just to be clear on the position that's expiring soon, the term that's expiring soon, and this is more of a attorney question. In the event the person sitting on the Board of Ethics right now also wants to still serve, they both apply, him and then the other candidate who submitted late, so we got two candidates. If a decision is not made by the expiration of his term and we have a meeting, he would still serve as a holdover until somebody was placed in. Is that correct? That's right. I just want to make sure so we're able to meet quorum, all the seats filled.
Yep, and the meeting takes place on the second Monday of the month?
Well, we have one in 2 weeks. We set it for, let me just pull it up here because we still got to go through the financial disclosure. So they set another meeting yesterday. I want to say it is August 13th, maybe. August 10th. So August 10th will be the next one at 3:30. And then we'll put on the agenda next meeting for the two to be appointed to it. So that would bring us to 5 full members now and have a full board, hopefully making quorum now with a full board. And we'll let the new members know 3:30 on the 10th, and then we'll move forward with the expiration posting.
Wonderful. That's a settled issue. Any other new business among council members?
I actually want to double back and stay on that subject for just one more second. So I know we have the 2 finalists now that we're looking to put in both of them. I just wanted to make sure, since we were only shooting for one person originally until we got in this situation, I assume the party affiliation concerns are, with them being a finalist, it's all on the up and up. There's no hiccups there? Okay.
It is. The way Chapter 18 of the Town Code is written, which is the Board of Ethics Code, it actually, the reason this is asked, for those that may not know, watching at home or in the audience, is that it does specify a certain number of folks in one party and a certain number of folks in another. So that way you don't have all Democrats or all Republicans. If we were to appoint the individuals that were interviewed and considered among the finalists, we would not be in violation of that section of the law. So we wouldn't have too many Democrats or too many Republicans.
That's only members, like you can be a registered Democrat, you can be a registered Republican, or you can even be a committee member. It's just having a...
Yeah.
It's I thought we talked about it before, and it was like one step higher. It's just committeemen.
Yeah, if you serve on a committee, you cannot be on the Board of Ethics.
Okay, gotcha.
If you had, in this case, you would have more than 2 parties represented, but as long as you don't exceed 3 from any particular party. So let's say you had a very small minor party and you found 4 of those people. Only 3 of them at max can serve, the way the law is written now. Is there anything else? Seeing none, hearing none, that'll move us along to the consent agenda announcement. A consent agenda is contained in this meeting. The consent agenda is designed to assist making the meeting shorter and more efficient. Items left on the consent agenda may not be discussed when the consent agenda comes before the town board. If any council member wishes to discuss a consent agenda item, please tell me now and I will remove the item from the consent agenda and it will be added as a separate resolution item. Clerk, I have 6 items for this evening after discussion with town staff and council members. We have resolutions 452, 458, 459, 461, 477, 478. Are there any others?
Yes, we have a couple. 451, 453, 454, 479,
Any others from council members?
458 was called, right?
On the list, here's the list I have from what I and Mr. Thompson announced. 451, 452, 453, 454, 458, 459, 461, 477, 478, 479.
460.
460 or 468?
460.
460.
Gives us 11 items. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda?
Yes, can you please read back what you have on?
I have pulled resolutions 451, 452, 453, 454, 458, 459, 460, 461, 477, 478, and 479.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I also add 463?
Those are the 12 items. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
I need a motion and a second to approve all items on the consent agenda, including the meeting minutes of June 24th, 2026, and including resolutions 2026-449 through 2026-489, recognizing that the following have been removed and action will be taken as separate resolution items. Those are the 12, 451, 452, 453, 454, 458, 459, 460, 461, 463, 477, 478, and 479.
Yeah, I'll offer the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call vote to approve said items. Councilmember Bukowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Elderkin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Nowicki.
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Supervisor Nowak.
Yes.
Supervisor, I'm sorry, but we just missed one little step. I know everybody in the room knows what you guys meant to do, but you took the roll call vote ahead of approving the agenda. So you approved them before you approved your agenda. Again, I'm sorry.
I appreciate that.
His question is, how do we correct that if we need to?
Well, I think you should just,
The first was the approval of the meeting agenda.
there you go. Now the consent agenda has been approved, and please forgive me, that's not usually done as a roll call. Understood?
No, the
So
meeting
now we
agenda
can go
was
forward.
first.
Thank you.
And the roll call was for the consent agenda.
There was a
There was a motion put in.
There was a motion and a second for the meeting agenda that was not carried out. There was not a majority vote called, and there was no opposition expressed. So there was the motion was begun, but my recollection is it wasn't completed. So I understand what you're saying, Attorney Fowler. So
why don't we just vote now?
Let's do it again.
Yeah, why don't we just pretend none of that ever happened? Let's just vote it all back through. First, to approve the agenda. Second, to approve the resolutions on consent.
So I will offer the motion to approve the agenda. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. And
back to the roll call vote.
To the roll, yeah, to the consent agenda.
Councilmember Bukowski.
Yes.
Member Elderkin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Nowicki,
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Supervisor Nowak.
Yes.
Resolution 2026-451 to award a contract for the Anna Reinstein Library roof replacement and column repair project sponsored by Councilmember Nowicki and Supervisor Nowak. Pursuant to Town Board Resolution 2024-530, adopted August 27th of 2024, the town authorized Rotella Grant Management to assist the Cheektowaga Public Library in applying for funding through the New York State Education Department. The town of Cheektowaga was subsequently awarded funding through the New York State Public Library Construction Grant Program. Resolved that the town board hereby awards the contract for the Anna Reinstein Library roof replacement and column repair project to Lakeside Contracting in the total of $423,900.
On the question, we do have Dan Caulfield from the Cheektowaga Libraries with us this morning, or this evening. I'm sorry, I'm having a ball here. If I can call you to the podium, if you could speak to this item.
Hi. Thank you, Council. Hi. This is for the roof replacement over at Anna, the flat roof, not the slope roof. It's been leaking for some years, and we were just hoping to get that replaced. There's also some of the laminated columns that are actually coming apart. They can be relaminated, or at the base parts of it, on about 4 of them have to just be excavated and replaced also. The concrete and the actual foundations are starting to crack on those. That's what we're hoping to do. It's a very well-used library. It's one of the libraries it's one of the first wood laminated libraries. If you talk to the SHPO department, they love to mention how early architecture is in our area, and they actually use that as a slope-proof, mid-century slope-proof library. It was one of the first. So, but it's very well used by the community. We have our story times. We have our public meetings there. Any community can come in and use our facilities. We're there for the schools, the kids, the grandparents, and we just hopefully get less leaks. That's about it.
So with that, we'll open it to the town board for questions. We do have our town engineer here as well to answer any questions along with Dan. So council members, any questions?
I have a question for Dan, but thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, hello.
All you do. My question is for either Supervisor or Mr. Kraus. In the second last whereas, it says the additional funding through town funds as appropriated by the town finance director. So I'm just wondering if there's a budget line that's coming from or where that funding is coming from. That's all.
Well, this is related to some of our capital project funding. So half of it will be is already bonded funds, and the other half is related to the a grant that this also refers to that Rotella has submitted to the state.
Thank you for that. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of language that can be put in here to clearly explain that, because, you know, 3, 4, 5 years from now, anybody looking back just to see this and say, well, where did that funding come from? You know, it's just nice to see that documented in this resolution. I'm fully supportive of it. Just looking for some sort of language to state what it's coming from. I don't know, is there anything that you would recommend specifically, Mr. Kraus, that can be put in there?
I don't have the exact account information in front of me, but there is an account in the capital project related to this. So I mean, if you would want to state that, you know, that it is a capital project that has been already funded with bonding. I mean, that's I don't have the the full detail of what account number it is, unfortunately.
Would you like to offer an amendment of any kind to this? I mean, there was email correspondence from July 1st and a little bit of conversation after that that got into some detail on this resolution. It said, please take a look over everything. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns before the meeting. That was 13 days ago. I'm happy to sponsor an amendment to this if it helps achieve the ends you're looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate you pointing out the fact of how long ago that email was sent out, but I was a little busy attending to my first child
Congratulations.
these last week or so. So that's why I have not attended to that email. But yeah, if there's some sort of language that can say it's, coming from a capital account, that would be fine. But just to say it's appropriated by the town finance director, I just don't see that as being, it sounds petty, but this is
No, I don't think it is.
everybody's money that we're discussing here. It's not just mine. It's everybody's.
I agree with you. It's not petty. I don't think that it is.
That's all I'm looking for. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say this is what it should be. So if there's a, recommendation, I would love to see an account number, but I don't want to see anything hold this up by any means tonight. So I'd be okay with coming from, a capital account.
Yeah.
So can we, I'm glad you said you don't want to hold it up or anything. So can
Yeah.
we just put it through, pass it, and then put in a resolution next meeting to amend it with the account number on it?
I
to
think we
address
could,
it?
not to interrupt you, but I think we could just put another whereas funding for this project will be coming out of. So we could put it in between the last two whereases. Whereas funding for this project will be coming out of the capital accounts, the 500 fund. And that we can
Okay.
at least describe it to the fund without the specific line. And that gets us, whoever wants to research this in the future, that's within the town in finance, accounting, what have you, has enough to get started with to go look for it. So
That'd be great. Everybody on this board, I'm sure, can appreciate how hard it is to find things at times. So the more information, the better, especially when it comes to tracking funding. So that's
So
the intent.
yeah, so I know you were asking for recommendations. I'll give it. I'm happy to give recommendations. It would read, whereas funding for this project will come from the town's 500 fund capital account. And
Is that a proper motion?
it's a proper motion. Is there a proper second?
I'll second.
Multiple seconds. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an amended resolution. Acting clerk, we now need to take a vote on the amended resolution.
Again, the resolution 2026-451, which is to award the contract for the Anna Reinstein Library roof replacement and column repair as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2026-452, call to public hearing special use permit for 2013 Walden Avenue, sponsored by Councilmember Bukowski and Supervisor Nowak. Jared Lusk of Nixon Peabody LLC, on behalf of developer Verizon Wireless, has filed submittals for review under local project 2026-2192 for the utility pole within a town right-of-way directly adjacent to 2013 Walden Avenue. Be it resolved that public hearing is to be held regarding the ask of a special use permit under project 2026-2192. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the town board, Town Cheektowaga, Erie County, New York, at the council chambers within Cheektowaga Town Hall on July 28th, 2026, 5:30.
All right, on the question? All right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. So this here was pulled because of the notice in the Cheektowaga fee. And just to make the town board aware of that situation, we are covered now, but the resolution, the notice called for the hearing at the July 14th meeting. that was published. We have a notice that's in the paper for July 28th public hearing. I believe the resolution was amended. Mine here were printed on the 8th, so let's double check that real quick. It says July 28th in front of you? Okay, so I pulled this just to confirm and ensure that all these details were set. This was brought to my attention, just a clerical error. But between the resolution, I want the board to know that the official proper B notice is going into the paper. So we are all set and in a position to vote on this item. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries.
Resolution 2026-453, call for a public hearing to authorize town supervisor to sign a payment in lieu of taxes agreement between the town of Cheektowaga and Harlem Villas Housing Development Fund Corporation and Harlem Villas LLC, sponsored by Councilmember Thompson and Councilmember Nowicki. Whereas the town of Cheektowaga desires to enter into a pilot agreement with the Harlem Villas Housing Development Fund Corporation. Resolved that a public hearing also be held on July 28th, 2026 at 5:30 at the Cheektowaga Town Hall at the corner of Union Road, regarding the town supervisor being authorized to enter into pilot agreement between Harlem Villas Housing and Harlem Villas LLC.
Okay, on the question?
So I know this is just calling for a public hearing, and that I'm okay with. I'm not a supporter of pilots. But will the developer be here on the 28th for that public hearing?
We can reach out to the project developer and have a representative here on July 28th.
For their best interest, for my support, I'd advise them to be here because I'm not a supporter of pilots.
I'd like to have my name removed from this resolution, please, as a sponsor.
Okay. I will add my name in place of Councilmember Thompson. So, any other discussion on the item? Seeing none, hearing none. With my name substituted in place of Councilmember Thompson, all in favor?
Aye.
Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Councilmember Bukowski.
Yes.
Member Elderkin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Vicky.
Yes.
Flarsky.
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
Supervisor Nowak.
I'm a yes.
Resolution 2026-454, call for a public hearing, intro into local law number 6 of the year 26. A local law creating chapter 195 of the Cheektowaga Town Code to be titled Rental Property Good Cause Eviction Law, sponsored by Councilmember Nowicki and Supervisor Nowak. Town Board for the Town of Cheektowaga is proposing by way of local law intro number 6 of 2026 to create a chapter in the Cheektowaga Town Code to be titled Rental Property Good Cause Eviction Law. Resolved that in accordance with the provisions of the Town Law Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held on the 28th day of July 2026 at 5:30.
Okay, on the question?
I'd like to start as a sponsor. So we've been talking about this for months now, on and off, given the opportunity for people of the town, members of the board, Conduct Online to kind of give their opinions about this. And it's just come to the point where there's not too much more we can say without going in an actionable way forward. So I put this, well, through the help of the law office here, we put this resolution up for the call to the public hearing because we've said a whole lot, and I think it's time to hear officially from the town how the residents feel about this. The way the wording is right now is essentially the version that most of the state has opted into in certain aspects. In the first aspect we'll go with how many units makes you considered a small-time landlord. We're starting with just one because that's pretty standard for most of the state. And that the parameters of like where that limits you to where you're a landlord, you can have that to be just the municipality you're in, just the county, just the state. We have it currently set at the whole state. We're going to have to hear from the residents. Maybe that's too restrictive. Maybe that's exactly where they want it to be. It's really a matter of hearing from the residents at this point what they think the correct application of the law should be, and we need to hear from them. I know for the most part we've heard a lot of positive feedback from the residents, some negative, but that's why this needs to be in place, so we have a official record of where people stand on it, and just giving them the opportunity to do so.
I have nothing to say at this time. Any other council members?
One of the questions I've had previously was, is this an issue in our town? And is there any data or record to prove such?
I don't have any information specifically regarding research of if this is something that we've run into as an issue or a problem, but I see it as an opportunity to give tenants better protections to stay in their homes isn't something that I think needs an issue to be addressed. I think it's promoting a beneficial aspect to our community by opting into it. So I don't know that it's a bad thing or it's something we're running into as an issue. I just see it as promoting a more vibrant and healthy community.
If there's not anybody speaking out saying, oh, please have the government help me with this. I mean, I'm sure there are certain programs that allow residents who are having issues with, rent increases or subsidizing their rent. But I mean, as a rental owner, what if somebody didn't pay their rent for, a year? What do you do then? What if they just say, oh, you know what, you think $100 increase is good, but I don't think so. I'm not paying this. And then you have to go through the process of, paying insurance and utilities and all of those things. At what point do we not look out for, you can call them business owners too, because they are supplying housing to individuals throughout the town. And, where are the protections for, the landlords? And you can say, well, I'm a landlord. Well, yeah, I've property managed also. So it goes both ways. So where are the protections for the people who are bringing housing in? So, I mean, if there was a judge sitting here today, I'm sure we can ask them, or there's a couple attorneys, the cases that have been for evictions because people just don't pay. Not because, they say, oh, my sink is broken. Well, maybe you broke it. Does that just justify, us paying more money to bring it up to code or bring it up to your standard? So I feel like there's just a lot of gray areas in this entirety. I love the idea of it. I just don't know if it's very complex to just say, yep, this is what we're going to start enforcing. But, if there's no issue, nothing's been brought to light to say, hey, this is a real problem in our community. This needs, someone to address it. Why are we going out of our way to say, hey, we're telling you this is a problem and we may create more problems we don't know, but it sounds like a good idea. So like I said, it just raises a lot more questions than answers. And it's not a criticism because you put the work into, try and push this forward. I respect that. Law office has put time into putting this together, but I don't know. We've had discussions, but I feel like there's a lot more that can be done before saying, hey, this is what we're going to do and mandate you to do.
Am I good to direct respond to that? So 2 parts. First part, I'm trying to be proactive towards our community rather than reactive, which is sort of my goal with implementing this. Just because we don't have a swath of landlords going crazy on their property rights doesn't mean I don't think this is something that we can implement that's good for the town. And secondly, I'll be sure to send this your way. The state attorney general actually has a page that, for it being a New York State webpage, is actually very well put together, where you can actually read it and understand what you're looking at. That shows where the law would apply to you. Obviously, minutia of our municipality would have to get implemented in that, but essentially it tells you where this law would not apply to you if you're a landlord, where you wouldn't have to do it. There's a whole bunch of reasons in there. But more to your point of what you were getting at with, what does good cause mean, and what does my landlord have to do to not have this affect him? Well, that's what the good cause is. Like you said, failed to pay rent, that's a qualifying way to get someone evicted. You violated the lease or rules or regulations of the landlord. You engaged in nuisance behavior. Your occupancy in the apartment is illegal. You refuse to give your landlord access to your apartment for repairs or to show a prospective buyer. You're using your apartment for an illegal purpose. Your landlord wants the apartment for their own personal use or to demolish it. The landlord plans to immediately stop using your apartment as a rental. And you have refused to agree to a reasonable and timely offered lease renewal. Part of this law states that your rental increases can be no greater than 10% or 5% plus the consumer price index of that year, unless you have a qualifying reason to go above and beyond that, which is stipulated in here. I'll send you the link. It's really honestly a good web page that goes into all these concerns that you have in a really good capacity.
Can I respond as well? I don't have data, but just anecdotally, I know just a couple people offhand, and I'm going to put this out for a call to action to come to the public hearing because it is good to hear stories. Been a tenant for 5 years and go to renew the lease and it goes up a couple $100 because the landlord can. So that's who I'm looking out for in a law like this. Someone who pays their rent on time, is a good tenant, and is made to relocate for no reason other than they cannot afford the exorbitant rent increase.
And that I can absolutely appreciate. The other side of that coin is when we have a municipality such as ourselves that say, you know what, we say this is important to do this year. We're going to pave 150 roads this year. We're going to do all these projects and buy all this, all these materials and vehicles, and we're going to have to raise taxes. So what about when taxes go up 5, 7, 8, 10% that I'm sure you've advertised you're going to do next year? What do they just absorb that then? That's, I guess, my concern. Or is it, hey, figure it out and sorry, you're going to have to make less profit for this investment that you've made?
The proposed law has to do with it if there's a reason beyond the 5%. And that would come down to, let's say, whether it's a reassessment or a property tax increase because we did infrastructure on a tax basis and we kept kicking the can down the road. There will be exceptions within this good cause proposal to deal with some of those situations. It was a good question that was asked. Is this a solution in search of a problem? Was essentially what was proposed. And people have a range of relationships with their landlords. We've got fourplexes, apartment buildings, duplexes, all types of rental arrangements throughout the town. But we have a lot of rental units compared to some other places. We have a lot of housing compared to some other places. And you're obviously going to find folks that are that have a good relationship with their tenants, that offer good housing, and you'd want them to be your landlord. But there's also situations where people have a terrible relationship with their landlord. And the intent of this is to deal with some of those more terrible situations, and the carve-outs and the exemptions, they don't punish the good folks. So.
Additionally, with the tax concern, so just doing quick back to the hand math, hypothetically, let's say I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, just pretend for a second here. Hypothetically, we had a 10% tax increase, $300 a year, $25 a month tax increase. If let's say consumer price index or inflation for that year is 3%, you're entitled to do 5% on top of that. If you have $1,000 a month rent, which depending on where you are in Cheektowaga, that could be a little high, it could be a little low. That's $80 a month. So there's a $55 a month window of play there simply from a tax increase alone, and a big one at that. So outside of getting a reassessment because you increase the property value a whole lot, which would constitute a good reason to increase rent prices, shouldn't be a concern.
Well, don't factor in utilities that are absorbently high too.
Sure, but that would constitute a good reason to. There's a lot of avenue. This isn't looking to hurt landlords. I'm sure there's a lot of big landlords who have good relationships with the governor who put this in place, and I doubt if it was that much of an issue that they would let it be in place the way it is. I'm glad you have your concerns. It's good that we have people looking at the other side of this, but by and large, if you're a competent landlord, I think you should be able to go through this without much struggle. We had a landlord in the audience today who said he was in favor of this. I've said before about how I'm a landlord and I don't see this being a problem on my property. Granted, I'm exempted from it being a live-in landlord, but with that all being said, again, we're getting to, this is the public hearing. So I think it would be, we've all spoken until the air's completely exited our lungs on this issue. I think it's best that the public gets the opportunity to really give their opinion on this. Not to discredit you. You can feel free to say as much as you want. Just, I think it's the time for the town to do so as well.
Any other comments from council members?
Yes, and once the public hearing passes, it's going to go to a vote and of course pass, regardless if there are 12 people here that say, hey, this is a bad idea. If there are 12 people here that come and comment on this and say it's a bad idea and nobody else, I will bet every dollar I've ever made that we will sit up here and pass that regardless of the 12 people that say this is a bad idea. And it goes both ways for other things too. But to sit up here and say, hey, let's listen to what the public has to say on this. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 people from each side. It always happens that say, hey, I'm in support of this. And we do the opposite. So we can't sit up here and say, let's hear what the public has to say, because we'd be hypocrites. That's all I got to say.
I'd like to call the question. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Can you take a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bukowski. Councilmember Elderkin.
Yes.
Member Lewis.
Yes.
Wiki.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
Supervisor Nowak.
I'm a yes.
Resolution 2026-458, 1111 Harlem Villas Approval Extension. Sponsored by Council Members Lewis, Councilmember Bukowski, and Supervisor Nowak. Whereas Greenleaf Builders has filed project submittals for review under the lead address of 1111 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, under local project 2023-3034. On February 21st, 2024, the Zoning Board of Appeals of Cheektowaga granted relief of the request. On April 9th of 2024, the Town Board of Cheektowaga granted approval for the site plan filed. Resolved that the Town Board grants an extension of terms for both variances established under Resolution ZBA-2024-11 and the site plan under Resolution RES 2024-194 for the duration of 1 calendar year from the date of approval of this resolution.
On the question, do the sponsors have any questions on this item before I speak?
Well, what I wanted to do is ask Dan Young if he could come up and just do a quick overview on the purpose of this, because I've gotten a couple contacts from residents in the area saying, well, what is the project not a go now? Is it going to be built? I thought it was passed. So what really is the holdup? Or what's-
Sure. Yep. We've spoken on this, Barb, and
Mhm.
thank you for bringing me up. For the council members, there's been ongoing dialogue between the town and the developing parties since we adopted this. It seems to be the holdup at this time is there's a state agency review with some of the funding that has taken some time. There was an initial project partnership that lapsed and has brought in the partners of Pivotal to partner with Greenleaf Builders. And then we have let's see here, there was funding that they were seeking to secure that they did not get, and they're trying again this September. Going back to why this resolution was put forth, under our code, the ZBA decisions that were granted have a expiration clause basically built into the code that there is 6 months to permit and then 1 year to construct. The same with the site plan approval. It's 1 year to file for a permit and get that permit, and then 1 year to construct. There was a demolition permit pulled, and from my understanding, that work has been completed. Obviously, the buildings are still there, but that permit, from my knowledge of speaking with my colleagues in code enforcement, the permit was not pulled for the demolition of the buildings, but just various things on site. So that work has been completed. There would be an additional permit for the demolition of buildings on site. So that permit in question expired on 12/4 of 2025, which means, my math is a little off here, on 12/4 of 20. That's interesting. I'm sorry. The permit expired on 12/4 of 2024, and then on 12/4 of 2025, the approvals expired. So under Chapter 260, Section 26073, that part of the code reads that the town has the ability to institute and appropriate any action or proceeding to prevent, correct, or restrain any violation of this chapter. Senior Vice President Trey Barbaro of Pivotal and partnered with Greenleaf Builders on this project on June 26th of 2026, requested an extension. We felt that it was based on the hardship that's been established at this point, based on state review, a change in partnership, and the financing issue, that in good faith, bring it before the town board for additional consideration of giving an extension. The extension would be extending those permits or those decisions as valid from 1 year of adoption with an additional year of validation for construction to start upon receipt of the permit. Everyone follow all that? Okay. So it's just trying to show, because we are part of this project, some good faith of, all right, we hear your hardship that you're facing, but at the same time, there needs to be action taken. So that's why we brought it forth to the town board to let you guys weigh in on this matter.
Address any, Councilmember Bukowski, has that addressed questions, concerns that have come to you? Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns from board members? I think we're all set, Dan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Bukowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Elderkin.
Yes.
Member Lewis.
Yes.
Member Nowicki.
Yes.
Member Pilarski. Councilmember Thompson.
No.
Supervisor Noah.
Yes.
Carried. Resolution 2026-459. Section 1135 Skagit Creek Aquatic Ecosystem Restoration Project, continuation of non-federal sponsorship, authorization to submit a 2026 New York State DEC Water Quality Improvement Project application, and establish the proposed funding plan.
Sponsors like to speak on the item before I do? Okay, we had some discussion at the beginning of this meeting with the presentation. We have what I believe is a competing resolution. There's significant amendments to this in terms of the text. In terms of the intent, there really isn't. There's a change in the dollar amount, and there's more clarification that comes from there. I'm happy to talk about this more, but without making the proper motion right this second to allow that discussion, my recommendation after where we've gotten to during this meeting would be to have this item pulled from the agenda. And if the sponsors don't feel that's the best move, I would ask that we discuss tabling the item at least. So would anyone else like to speak on the item before we consider pulling it? Would the sponsors be in support of polling, Ms. Lewis and Ms. Bukowski? Okay. The item's pulled.
Okay, resolution 2026-460. Bond resolution authorizing issuance of 2026 refunding bonds. Refunding bond resolution of the Town of Cheektowaga, New York, adopted July 14, 2026, authorizing the refunding of all or a portion of certain outstanding serial bonds of said town, stating the plan of refunding appropriating an amount not to exceed $8,500,000.
On the question, I have nothing on the question at this time. Would any other council members like to speak on it? I know Councilmember Elderkin's on the item, but I believe it was Mr. Thompson, Councilman Thompson pulled it. So would anyone else like to speak on it?
Yeah, I just thought it was a valid point that was brought up earlier by residents. And I was wondering if Mr. Kraus had any input on that, if you recall that at all.
I mean, there's a refinancing plan that's attached to this documentation with the board meeting minutes, and that plan shows a savings of about $143,000 over the remainder of the till 2035. That's when the current bonds go out until, and that's when the refunding bonds would go out until as well. So, I mean, it's a savings. I don't see it as being controversial that we want to refinance in order to make savings.
Well, the question was if the interest rate were to change.
I believe that the capital markets who put this plan together used some conservative numbers, that their expectations would be that there's not that much risk in that kind of fluctuation.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
Any other council members on the item? All right. I'd like to call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
Resolution 2026-461. 2026 revised fee schedule for the offices of planning, building, plumbing, fire safety, and neighborhood housing and preservation, sponsored by Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Elderkin. It is desired the town board to provide the public with an opportunity to review and comment on the proposed 2026 revised draft fee schedules. Resolved that a public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at the Town Board of the Town of Cheektowaga on July 28th at 5:30.
Before the sponsors get an opportunity to speak on this, on advice of counsel and discussion with the town attorney, I would recommend we pull the item. The item's pulled.
Resolution 2026-463, purchase replacement slide for Raymond Park, sponsored by Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Elderkin. Facilities Department, Parks Division has requested authorization to purchase a replacement slide for Raymond Park. Resolved that the Town Board hereby authorizes the purchase of park playground equipment as detailed on the attached quotation for Kelly Park in the amount of $8,160.83 from Game Time in Spring Lake, New Jersey.
On the question, there is correspondence from the Parks Director on this, but we'll throw it open to the sponsors if they'd like to speak before we open it to the full board. Okay.
I'll just respond with Mr. Mez's. The slide at Raymond Park was not damaged in 2023 park car crash. It started to naturally break down post-accident. The slide was closed down when it first appeared unsafe. And the second shift employee was just called again to go retape it. It seems like it was untaped by the children. So it's retaped right now and is closed down until the new safe slide is installed. Children rip off the tape and we just have to keep shutting it down. So that's why this is important to get the safe slide up in place.
Because I was going to request a table just to research that, because I know there was that accident that occurred like a year or two ago, and I know there was some replacement. So I wanted to just confirm that, but
yeah, we have
that's fine.
Yeah, and we have pictures of it taped down. It just was taken down. Yeah.
No issue.
With that, any other comment from council members? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
Resolution 2026-477, appointment of a real property appraiser, competitive professional assessor's office for Anthony J. Clare, sponsored by Councilmember Thompson and Councilmember Nowicki. Resolved that Anthony Clare of Williamsville, New York, be and hereby appointed to the provisional position of real property appraiser in the office of the town assessor in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town collective bargaining agreement with the TCEA. Resolved that in compliance with local law known as the residency law of the town of Cheektowaga, Anthony Clare be and hereby is ordered to obtain residency within the town of Cheektowaga within 6 months of the date of this resolution.
On the question, as from what you read off, it appears that the amended proposal may be on the town board agenda. As I said, I have what was printed out last week in front of me, and I have the updated proposal that Mr. Fowler gave us. Tom, if you could speak to this item as I'm...
Please. What I passed out to everybody, which was what was just read, would reflect a revision or an amendment, so you're going to have to vote on that. I just passed this out so it was in everybody's hands, but technically speaking, what was pre-filed was different than what was just read. So somebody should move for and then second the revision as read by our deputy town clerk.
Yeah, and just to confirm, what the version online right now is not what was read, and it backs up exactly what you said. So if the public doesn't see what was read, that's why. I will offer the resolution as read as an amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. All in favor of the resolution as amended?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The resolution as amended is passed.
Resolution 2026-478, appointment of network coordinator, Department of Information Technology and Records Management, Jared Fednia, sponsored by Supervisor Nowak and Councilmember Thompson. Whereas a vacancy exists in the title of Network Coordinator in the Information Technology and Records Management Department. Jared Fednia, currently a Senior Microcomputer Technical Support Specialist in the Information Technology and Records Management Department, appears on the said list and is eligible for appointment. Resolved that Jared Fednia of Cheektowaga be and hereby be appointed to the position of Network Coordinator in the Information Technology and Records Management Department, in accordance with the terms and conditions of Town Collective Bargaining Agreement with the TCE.
As the mover of the item, I'd like to recommend that this be pulled. Would the other sponsor agree with that? At this time, this job was not put out to the bid process properly, and for that reason, we should not take action on it. So I want to offer that we pull it. All right? The item's pulled.
Resolution 2026-479, appointment of Senior Clerk, Highway Department, Colleen Pools, sponsored by Supervisor Nowak and Councilmember Elderkin. Whereas a vacancy exists for the title of Senior Clerk in the Highway Department, resolved that Colleen Pools of Cheektowaga, New York, be appointed to the non-competitive permanent position of Senior Clerk in the Highway Department in accordance with the terms and conditions of the Town Collective Bargaining Agreement.
On the question?
Question on this. So maybe it's one of the first that I've seen, per the New York State Helps program, but so this is allowing us to hire somebody in limited placements program. And what are the qualifications? Does this position need to be a very important position and it's just sitting empty and there's an 8-week probationary period? I don't know. I don't recall seeing this before. So I don't know if we could maybe elaborate a little bit.
As much as I know, we had a retirement in the Highway Department, and that spot needed to be filled. With that, you're going to see a resolution that was already approved on consent, I believe it was. I believe we dealt with it on consent, where somebody was hired for a position, they decided to go back to their previous position. So they came from Youth and Rec, went back to Youth and Rec. As a result of that, there were no bargaining unit members in TCEA that bid on the position, so that it opened it up to folks outside of the TCEA. The job was posted and it was filled, and there was correspondence dealing with the individual that went to the department for a day and came back. So as a result of that, the job was opened up to folks outside of the bargaining unit. That opened it up to this applicant to go over there, who has been in the position for a few weeks now.
Well, you said it was posted. I'm saying besides in the town. Did it get posted like online or?
The job was posted, an individual accepted it, and after a day, that individual went back to their previous department. And talking with the president of the TCEA, we reached agreement to keep this individual over in the Highway Department.
As long as it's fine with it, sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
The end of our resolution items that were pulled from the. Now we move on to the suspension of rules. Motion and a second to waive the rules to include resolutions 2026-490 and 2026-491 to the table for consideration.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Resolution 2026.
I'm sorry, we're going to need a roll call vote.
Oh, sorry. Roll call vote. Councilmember Bukowski.
Yes.
Member Elderkin.
Yes.
Member Lewis.
Yes.
Yes.
Flarsky.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Aye.
Resolution 2026-490, establishing the Cheektowaga Police Department Community Advisory Council, sponsored by Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Nowicki. Whereas the town board finds that establishing a community advisory council will create a structured forum for constructive dialogue, civic engagement, and collaboration between the Cheektowaga Police Department and the residents of the town. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Cheektowaga establishes this Cheektowaga Police Department Community Advisory Council. Be it further resolved that the lead sponsor identified above shall serve as the chair of the Community Advisory Council, and another council member designated by the town shall serve as co-chair.
I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Item's tabled.
Table. Resolution 2026-491, approving the termination of the declaration of covenants recorded in Libra 9192 of the deeds at page 632 in the office of the Erie County Clerk relating to property located at 777 Indian Road, Depew, New York. Sponsored by Supervisor Nowak and Councilmember Nowicki.
If I can ask Attorney Fowler to speak briefly on the item, it's got a invigorating title there, but just to give us a quick Reader's Digest on what this means for the folks at home and in the audience.
This is in relation to the Indian Road AC Power Solar Project that we dealt with last year. If I'm not mistaken, the ZBA gave a use variance, became an as-of-right use. The board voted it down. We were engaged in litigation over this, and then we settled fairly favorably to the town with a community host agreement and some payments being made to the town, first and foremost, to help the people who were closest to this with shielding them from some of the effects of the solar panels. Back in 1982, there was this agreement entered into between this declaration of covenants. It was a deed declaration. What happened was it was an MS1 zoning, and it went to MS2 because MS2 allows for the landfill. MS1 did not. And there was some language that required reversion when the piece of property stopped being used as a landfill. So that's happened. However, and this has nothing to do with us. This is just the town doing a little housekeeping. The title insurer who wrote the title insurance paperwork for this AC Power Group saw this declaration that has absolutely nothing to do with anything anymore because it is a closed landfill. But it's holding out there, and in my opinion, we're required to consider this resolution because in our settlement agreement, our settlement stipulation on consent in Supreme Court, when the litigation was taking place last year, we agreed to do what we were supposed to do in settling the matter so the project could go forward. And we did that in exchange for the community host agreement payments. So this doesn't change anything. This is one of those things that people look at and say, lawyers, you're screwing this all up. You are making more work for us than needs to be. That's all this really is. It's housekeeping. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions from council members? Seeing none, hearing none, I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries.
Includes our suspension of rules. On to communications. I have the minutes from the Cheektowaga Conservative Advisory Council from June 10th, 2026. Minutes from the Traffic Safety Commission from June 16th, 2026. The supervisor's statement for December 2025, supervisor's statement for January 2026, supervisor's statement from February 2026. Also have 5 notice of claims in general communications.
With that, our next order of business is public comment period. It's an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. Mr. Gilbert, you're first.
Thank you once again, Town Board. I had hoped to hear from you regarding hiring a comptroller. I understand that the town is still without a comptroller, and I think that the comptroller could give a fair amount of controls. But I come tonight with a story. This is a story about a bank robbery. It's not very often that between our last time here and this time here, there's been a very significant piece of news. I call it the most important Supreme Court case in about a decade. On May 20th, 2019, a man robbed a credit union in Midlothian, Virginia. The police were low on leads. Their best lead was that on surveillance footage, the robber was recorded using a cell phone. So the police sought a geofence warrant. The warrant specifies a time frame and maps an area with a geofence as its perimeter and demands information about the cell phones and their users present within it. This identified a person, Mr. Okello Chatry. Mr. Okello Chatry, in federal court, challenged the government's use of its Google location history data recorded by his cell phone against him being used by the government in its prosecution. He says that's an unreasonable search of records over which he has a reasonable expectation of privacy protected by the Fourth Amendment. Trial court ruled that the geofence warrant was unconstitutional, denied exclusion of the evidence anyway, evidentiary exceptions. One of those occasions when lawyers make life difficult. Chatry appealed. 5-judge panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. They agree the evidence should not be excluded, but they agree because he had no reasonable expectation of privacy in just 2 hours worth of location history that he voluntarily exposed to Google. That's what 5 judges on the appellate court said. He asked for a rehearing with all the judges on that court. It's called en banc. Get them all together. What do they all say? Well, there's 14 of those judges and they disagreed. 7-7, they're split. 7 of them say, we've got a search here that the Fourth Amendment needs to protect. And 7 of them say, we don't. The United States Supreme Court grabbed this jump ball. They answered this question alone. And on June 29th, 2026, 6 justices of that Supreme Court answered it. Yes, there's a search. Justice Kagan wrote, contrary to the government's view, an individual has a legitimate expectation of privacy in the information location history collects about his cell phones, meaning his own movements. The police invade that expectation and thus conduct a search when they acquire that information, even though only for a limited period of time and even though through a third-party tech company. Justice Kagan continued. She wrote about Carpenter v. United States. I spoke about that case here yesterday. Well, yesterday, Christ, 2 weeks ago. 8 years ago, this case was decided. She said, what's more, the newfound tracking capability that cell site location information gives the police runs against everyone, not just those under investigation, and travels back in time. Police officers need not decide in advance, as they do with GPS devices, who they want to follow and when. Instead, they can easily and cheaply, with just the click of a button, reconstruct any person's movements retrospectively.
Mr. Gilbert, it's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is David Ulatowski.
Judge, you're giving everybody what they want. That's what you
Why not?
propose, right?
Good evening. Nice to see a full board here tonight. I do a kind of quirky thing sometimes. So lately I've been getting into watching board meetings. And New York, I'm not sure if we're unique in that we have village, hamlet, town, county, school board, zoning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You look in other states and they don't have the plethora of government up and down the line. But 3 hot topics across the country from sea to shining sea: flock cameras, data centers, and public comment. Flock cameras people are granting that is a tool that can be used by the police. Both the chief of police and a former police officer here spoke at previous town board meetings, said that it's a tool amongst many others, and they gave evidence of how it is they've aided in catching someone or lost children or kidnapped children. But I don't think there's anyone in this room that has not been affected by getting a letter saying, we've been alerted by our data center attorneys that there was a breach. I know I've gotten a couple of them from healthcare companies and stuff like that. So how do we know for sure that there's not going to be a breach with the flock camera system? We don't. So it's best maybe to take a look and see how we could safeguard what information we're gathering and who has access to it, and are there double, triple, quadruple safeguards to that? Public comment. It is a right for everyone to speak their mind and their opinion, respectfully. One of the things that a lot of people, and I've witnessed at these meetings over and over and over again, are the time constraints. I see a vast difference in the time allotted. 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes in various jurisdictions. One exception. Just about everyone that I saw outside of here has a clock visible to both the board members and the person speaking, so that if they are not used to public speaking and garnering their time, they can say, oh, I want to get to this point down at the bottom of my letter, so I'm going to skip over something so I don't run out of time. So maybe that's something that this board can look into, is getting a clock that's visible by both people. And my last item is the consent agenda. 41 items on an agenda that if no one had a question about would just get, no discussion, no transparency to the public about what you are approving or not approving or even discussing. That's way too large and way too abbreviated in some respects. Just off the top of my head, I love the fact that we have playgrounds all over town so that our children have the opportunity to go outside.
I'm sorry to cut you short. We're on 3:15. All right.
Thank you.
Speak on that. That's actually where a clock would have been beneficial. So I agree with you. We did have a clock at one point, and I would bring it in, and then I stopped taking the timekeeping and went back to the supervisor. But I would recommend, piggybacking off of your recommendation,
bring it back.
We could actually put the time clock on these TVs behind us. It could come from this computer, just a simple app, and just stopwatch app on it, and then the residents speaking up here could see it, and then we could actually see it on that one, because all agenda items and presentations would be over at that point.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And even if we can't get it up there,
I had a little time one that I brought in here that I had for my sports teams. Yeah.
even if we can't get it up there, we can get a clock display.
Put a simple app up on this, on that computer there, and it would show on all three where everybody can see it.
Our next speaker is Dawn Flipsky.
Hi, everybody. I just had a question about the bonds that we're going to be doing. Where can residents go to purchase town bonds? And do we know what the interest rate will be and the minimum amount of purchase? You can get back to me on that, Mr. Kraus. Cayuga Creek, which runs behind my house, there are several trees that are down, not on my side, the dump road side. There's trees, branches, and one new one just popped up that's almost directly behind my house on the other side, and you can see it, and I kind of feel like maybe it might create damming, or it's going to be a catcher for other things and may create flooding that way before my house. So I don't know, maybe somebody can look into it. It's kind of a shame we don't have that floaty thing anymore, that whatever y'all called it, could go on the other side of the creek and take them down. And lastly, two things. I did think about that clock thing, so thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. That is a great thing. So we all know how long we have. And Mr. Nowicki, I'm not a lawyer, but you do own now two properties. One of is a double in Cheektowaga, one's a single in Buffalo. You can't really live in both. So at some point, you are probably not going to be residing in the town of Cheektowaga any longer. At some point, I'm not sure whether or not you're allowed to vote on your own resolution, because technically that looks like to me a kind of conflict of interest. And I think any reasonable person would find that a conflict of interest as well. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Rachel Martinez.
Hello. So I don't know if I misunderstood earlier, but it sounded like when we were talking about one of the public hearings, Vern, it sounded like you said basically whatever people say there doesn't matter because you guys are going to vote the way you're going to vote anyways, which as a resident that takes time out to send you guys stuff and come and talk and go to all these, kind of sucks to hear that like basically you said it doesn't really matter what any of you guys come and say because you're going to vote what you want anyways. So like I said, maybe I misunderstood. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. I also was, hopefully the public hearings do something for you guys. I was also wondering if there could be a public hearing around the advisory council so that if we're talking about, creating something where citizens get to have input, maybe we should have input into that process. So give us a chance to talk about what we're looking for as far as the Citizens Review Board before a resolution is put out to kind of explore that further. And also just going back to FLOC again and looking at some of these policies, just a reminder that in our own policies, it says things like reasonable suspicion or probable cause is not required before using an ALPR, which basically is saying you can use it for whatever you want. And also with the data collection and retention, I still have an issue with the wording in there of ALPR data should be purged unless it has become or is reasonable to believe it will become evidence in a criminal or civil action. You could use that to justify saving absolutely anything. Anything could be evidence in the future. You don't know. You can't tell the future. It'd be great if you could, but that's not a reason to hold something that wasn't a hit at the time. So if we're using these FLOC cameras, obviously, my position is that we don't have them at all, but if we're using them, we need to have extremely strict wording, and everything in here is so vague, and that puts us at a risk of lawsuits, and it puts your officers at risk of all sorts of things. But we want to have policies that set our police up for success, and I don't think we have that.
Thank you. Dave, you're next.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Mr. Nowicki, but all the years I've been coming to this, I've been wondering about this. We hire people and they have to meet a residency. Today, there was quite a few of them. There was, there's some 6 months, a year, and they always come back and cry me a river, okay? It's like, I'm like, can't find a house. Look there's houses in here this down there cheap. There's houses on Borton Road over $500,000. I've only seen one in this town for over $1 million over years ago, and it was the George Urban house. Other than that, cry me a river when you tell me you can't find a house and it takes you a year. You ain't looking very well. I look every day at the houses available in this town. And like I said, they're in every school district, Lawson Road, French Road, there's a ton of them. And they're also in the north side, east side, west side, they're all over God's creation. So when they come up and tell me after a year, I got to keep looking, and the school district, no. I don't want to hear none of that. You had a year. What do you want? 6 months more, 6 more months? No. You go, and who checks on these people? That's the other part of this. Who checks on them? Who says, hey, you're coming up to a year and you ain't moved. You better move awfully quick or you could take that job and kiss it and be strict about it. I mean, really, come on. Who checks on these people? If it's in a police department, any department, who checks on them? Their boss? Give them a heads up? It's your own job. You're supposed to be looking out for yourself. You're an adult when we hire you here. Look out for yourself. You know, I got kids and I understand this, and my kids are adults. You fool me, but look, you're really who looks into this? I want to know the answer to that. And every department supervisor probably knows who will be affected, and there should be a list out there and see. Oh, that guy's 6 months. He's got only a couple weeks left. You know, I want to know this. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Final speaker we have signed up, Susan, I don't want to butcher your last name. All right. Grubb. I thought it was, but I couldn't see it clearly enough. I'm sorry about that. You have 3 minutes.
I am a lifelong resident. I'll be 68 next month here in the town of Cheektowaga. And I am offended by some of the remarks that were made by some of the individuals here. I am very supportive of the police. I'm very supportive of the town council. I'm very supportive of Flock. And I take offense when people say they're representing the town and what they're thinking. My other quick thought was, you're going to be doing an advisory committee for the police department. Is that correct? Am I understanding that? Is that going to be open to town residents to be able to sit on that? Okay, so I would like to sit on that. I don't know what the rules are for that or how you go about applying for that. But being a longtime resident here in the town of Cheektowaga, I'd like to sit on that committee. Thank you. Participating, however you want to say. I don't have the correct verbiage for it, but.
No, just, I mean, in town government in general, being an active participant in this whole
So
thing.
it's going to
Thank
be
you.
a committee. It's going to be made up of
It's
council
currently
members.
tabled, and we need to make a companion resolution to actually hone down everything that you're specifically talking about right
Mhm.
now. So keep in contact with us to, you know, make sure you
So
get
is
to
there
have a
going to
say
be
in
stuff
this.
published on that, or how are you going about doing that?
Yes, so the idea is to have it where we're having an open communication between the police department and also residents of the town of Cheektowaga. Because the item was tabled, I don't really want to talk too much, but I can. It's fine. The thought of it is to basically provide the community concerns into constructive dialogue and practical collaboration. So it's not a I thing, it is a community thing where we can all have voices to the table. And as we are designing this, it's not just designing it the way that I think, it's having that community input into the design of the actual advisory council. We're going to be creating bylaws. We're going to be setting up times where we can actually have these meetings, these conversations, these open conversations with the community to bring their voices to the table. And that's literally what it's about. It's to
So
bring
is
the
there going to be a
residents' voices.
structured
It's-
agenda to
Mhm,
this?
It's going to be
Not
structured.
a free-for-all where it's
Oh,
going to
no,
come up
it's-
and complain and.
So no, I've already been in, our town lawyer has already, put some things together for this actual advisory council. It's nonpartisan, so it's not just one viewpoint or one-sided, obviously it's not just going to be the Democrats or it's going to be a nonpartisan advisory council where all voices are brought to the table to bring the issues, and it's going to be structured. It's not going to be
'Cause it could be a free-for-all.
something. No, it's not, and that's not how I operate anyway. So anything that has our names attached to it is going to be done in a way that it does bring results, and also it does bring the community together for the greater good of the community.
Okay. All right.
And
Thank you.
thank
So
you.
I'll be looking towards the minutes going forward,
Sure.
or?
Well, so we have to build it. So it's not built yet.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But where is that information going to be?
So once we can approve it to go forward, then that's when we're going to create the bylaws. That's when we're going to start putting all the pieces together.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would love your input on how we should do that, and also the community input on how we should do that together.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good segue into the first thing I wanted to talk about with the supervisor's comments. When we do our comments at the beginning of the meeting, we keep it to a strict 3 minutes, but it's a little more free form during the end part of the meeting. It wasn't that way for most folks today. They got their 3 minutes, the hammer got dropped, and they got out of there. We had one person today that when they were told to stop talking, they kept going and they approached us. I've approached this person privately, and I'm going to say now on the record, if you can't be respectful of this board, of myself in the room, don't come to our meetings. It pisses me off and it's irritating. You have to respect everybody. Everybody else in this room was fine. I tried to do this in a discreet, behind the scenes kind of way. We got to call it out on the record now. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your opinions are. You can't respect process and procedure. Don't be here. A couple meetings back, we had a guy come regarding his soil over on in the Harlem George Urban neighborhood. I spoke with him. I'm going to go see him. That one hung out a little bit longer than I wanted to, but we're moving along on that. The hotel bed tax. In my office, we're calling around to the hotels to make sure they're actually collecting, and they are. So they got the certificates to give them the permission to collect. They are actually doing that now. We're going to have a sense middle of October of what we're looking at on revenues to meet those projections. Earlier in the meeting, I mentioned the mid-year budget, about getting that online. I know you guys got that on email. I'd encourage you to take a look at that and take a look at where some of our issues are. I've just started looking it over, and some of the things we talked about a few months back that I thought were going to be issues we'd have to address with budget transfers, it's starting to look like they will be. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. When I'm done, I'll share some of the things that I have found. Resolution 461, I had that in my notes. I'll get back to that. But I did send an email about proposed data center moratorium. And because of what the governor did today, I don't think we have to do anything with that. If there is interest among board members to do a moratorium on data centers here at the town, I'm absolutely open to that, but we don't have the kind of land available, quite frankly, that's going to lead to the issues that Tonawanda is dealing with, or some of these other rural areas deal with, where farmland gets sold and all of a sudden you're dealing with this huge large-scale data center. We've already got data centers in this town. They're just very small scale. They might be in places where we don't notice, but we now have an opportunity for a year to be a little proactive on how to deal with those. One of the things have to do with the sales taxes. Maybe we should consider a support resolution or reaching out to state lawmakers to make sure that they make that a priority before the moratorium is over, and that the data centers that are built in the future are actually paying taxes. There was a story in the Buffalo News about a Niagara County data center that is basically running off to the bank and is not being taxed because of a law that goes back to the Pataki years. Not to blame him, but it's just, it was written a certain way and it's interpreted a different way 25 years later. We have an opportunity with the year now to think about, with the land we have available, what kind of data centers might show up and what we may want to do at the town level to deal with those. On 461, the reason that was pulled is we have to do a local law change. So I talked with Attorney Fowler about that prior to the meeting, and the idea is basically to adjust the local law. Once we get done with that, then we can bring those fees back up. Once we revise those fees, they'll help us cover costs. They'll address the revenue situation in that part-town fund too. The time clock idea that that Dave and Dawn both spoke about and Ryan Pilarski spoke about. I've been keeping time here, trying to watch for public comment stuff here, and just balancing a lot of stuff. So it's probably a good idea if somebody else takes on the timekeeping aspect with all that. I do like to give a little leeway within these things, and I want to make sure there's general fairness, but I think somebody should be allowed to finish a thought. Should they go another 30 seconds? Absolutely not. Should they just ignore, hey, your time's up, and come up here and approach us? It sucks. It's irritating, as I said before. But the time clock would help us address that issue. The parade, 4th of July. We had a good showing for that parade. Folks had a lot of fun with that. The July 3rd festival was well attended. And what we did on the 4th of July, it was a learning experience. We had some folks in interest in that, but we have something good, some bones there to build off of for next year. Mr. User's question on residency checks. Main avenue to take care of that is our personnel department. Payroll is another avenue that where's the check being mailed to? It's an opportunity to check that out. There's multiple ways to check that, but our personnel department does check into these situations. And confirm process and procedure on how that goes along. But when we do tell folks you got 6 months to move in, they're moving in, and we're able to confirm that. What else we got on this list here? That's all I've got. So we'll go over to Mr. Pilarski.
Kind of hit on one topic, 4th of July. I think it was a good weekend weather-wise held out for us. I was a little nervous for the parade, my little portion of it all. I know the supervisor's office ran the July 3rd Freedom Fest, and he spoke on that, and then I'll let those that did the after event in the park speak on that. But the parade held off. We had roughly about average the same amount of participants this year as we did in the past. Unfortunately, we were late to the game on it, and hopefully next year we started already putting out emails, hopefully to gain interest for next year and get it early. Unfortunately, we did not do that this year for a couple of reasons, but turned out well. Not great, not amazing or anything, but it was average and it was well, and the weather held out, and it was a good turnout. So I thank everyone involved, from police, parks, facilities, those that marched in it, and those that showed up to it. Thank you all for it. Also, speaking of events, we do have Polish Fest coming up July 24th to the 26th. Our next meeting will be the 28th for town board, so it is before that. So this is your reminder for July 24th to the 26th.
Councilmember Lewis?
Same. I want to echo to thank the town departments, first responders, volunteers, residents, and community partners for the 4th of July parade. Great success. In addition to that, I just want to say that I recently completed our Stop the Bleed training through our town ASHER committee. Sometimes we run away from how we could help someone, but I just want to say that taking this training has given me an additional level of confidence to be able to help someone. So I'm excited about continuing my time on the ASHER committee. Tonight, I was looking to bring forward a resolution 490, which was tabled tonight, but I want to say this. It is important to ensure that voices are heard. I believe that it's a first step, and I believe that it's a first step for us to be able to have something that didn't exist before. And whether or not someone is or isn't a part of it, for me, it's community. Community means that it's not me, it's a community. It's all of us in a unified way to be able to come together and to ask questions and to come together to be able to see how we can support one another in a healthy and in a healthy way, to be able to communicate with transparency. I also have been just a little ill, so I want to just thank my team, our team, collaboratively to help check on me while I was ill. So thank you all for your prayers for strength. But that's pretty much all I have for right now.
Good to be back. My apologies for not being at the last town board meeting. I was on a work trip out of town, and unfortunately with the meeting being one day off regular schedule, it was right during my flight coming back into town, so I regrettably had to miss it. But being back in here, I guess I'll address the big thing in the room tonight, that I've purchased another piece of property. I've said this before to people who have asked me in the community, and I'll say it here again. The house in Cheektowaga is my primary property. It's where I live. That is my house. I reject some of the claims that have been made against me tonight. The fact that I have a full-time job, my time in the town council here, a second property that I'm looking to fix up, and also having a life in there. I don't believe that claims being made about when I do and don't come out of my house are much more than hearsay, so I'll just let that be as it is. Having a job, so does my wife. My Cheektowaga property being a rental has some income with it, and I believe I have the right to pursue what most of us should consider the American dream. Hell, if this is a problem for me, Legislator Todaro should essentially be under the jail for what he's done, buying all those properties, and That's not even saying anything against the guy. All the power to him. He's doing the best he can with the buying properties, and I don't see how my situation is much any different. I have a public responsibility to this position. The people who voted last November put a responsibility on me to at least finish my term until the end of 2027 to do right by the community, and I'll maintain that that is exactly what I'm going to do. I committed to that responsibility. I'm going to see it through to the end, and I'm going to do it within the bounds of the law properly. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to expand on comments towards me about the public comment periods. Yeah, I stand by that comment. There are moments where we have, in what I consider something that's very important and affects a lot of residents and taxpayers. We'll have a public hearing about it and not a single person show up. Not a single person. And now we have something, well, not now, but you may have something that, comes up, could be a little controversial, and you have, we'll use that same number, 12 people, they show up and say, yep, we, support this and you have to pass this. And everybody's like, whoa, these 12 people are yelling at us, we're gonna, make them happy and we're gonna, follow the public opinion. And yeah, we listen to the public, but there's how many residents in this town? So to say, yeah, we're, listening to the public to appease the public by doing our duty, you're not always doing that. You're appeasing a small group of people. And again, on either side, that could be. So I didn't want to, say, no, I'm not listening to your, comments and your thoughts on things. I believe that's very important. I just wanted to be realistic because I've seen and sat on both sides of it. So it's more so just kind of bringing it to light. I do think they are very important to have those public hearings, but again, it's very frustrating when you have something that's very important and affects a lot of people and nobody shows up, or one person speaks on it, or a lot of people don't even know about it. So that's the frustrating part, and that's what you saw earlier on my comments on that. Other than that, I heard the 4th of July, 3rd of July celebrations went well, and I appreciate everybody's hard work getting that going while I could not be there. Other than that, couple things working behind the scenes. I've brought this up previously about potentially doing recycling in-house again. So that's something that I've been looking into, certainly with the added costs. It's something that I think is important to at least explore and see if that's a cost savings to us, if it's something that we can actually do. Another thing is trying to get our website a little bit better. That's one thing that's been a pain point of mine for a long time. I'm sure everybody can relate to that. Even with updates, it'd be nice to have, everybody accessible as far as employees throughout the town to be able to access that and update their portions, because I'm sure there are items on there. It's a lot of load for just the clerk to maintain. So I think that's important to have a focus on. So other than that, that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Bukowski.
A huge thank you to everyone that participated or had anything to do with coordinating the events of Freedom Fest on July 3rd, as well as the 4th. Special thanks to our police department, first responders, and everyone involved. It was a really good time. The big next festival is the Polish Festival, and this year it's really it's going to be terrific. There's a lot that's coming in, and I encourage everyone to try at least a couple of hours one of the days, because there's going to be continuous music, but there's going to be a lot of the heritage, Polish heritage, of between the foods, the pottery and dancers and everything. It's going to be a really good time. So I encourage everyone. So that's the 24th, 25th, and 26th. And that's it.
Okay, first, thank you, Dan, from the libraries, for coming here. Brings me back, the Rhinestein Library was my first job almost 30 years ago. So happy to see that it has a new roof. Thank you, Supervisor and Supervisor's Office, for arranging Freedom Fest on July 3rd. Thank you, Parks and Facilities, for working that whole weekend, almost 24/7. I think they got a couple hours sleep, but just a lot of work they had to put in to keep our park clean. And of course, thank you to the police department for working overtime and all the hard work that whole weekend. Thank you, Councilmember Pilarski, for organizing the parade. Hope you get some rest after that, because it seems like a lot of. And thank you, Councilmember Lewis, especially for your hard work, working with Councilmember Bukowski and our council secretary for the after parade celebration. And I'm happy to move on and next year have it even bigger and better, but it was a great start and great music and great food trucks. So happy to see people there. That's it.
All right, with that, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Bukowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. See you in all 2 weeks.
Hey, there's still daylight out there.